Hey. Welcome to another episode of Madness and Mayhem. So today we are going to do a very focused episode all on Iran and everything that's going on. So I have spent 2 days, 2 days, kind of trying to kind of get some stuff together. So, but bearing in mind that we've done lots of context already, we've already deep dived into the Middle East, some of the things that have already happened. I'm going to kind of summarize some of the stuff because it all kind of feeds together. But very interesting. Very interesting. And hopefully you'll see on this journey just how much all the things that have been happening definitely in the last 2 years have been 100% leading to this, but also this is like 1400 years worth of shit show coming to a head. So we're going to dive into history, empires, oil, Jeffrey Epstein, Iran's nuclear sites, and Keir Starmer, and the fucking Chagos stuff. Hopefully, people have started to realize just how much the cabal were pushing to get rid of that, and how important it is now turning out to be. Right, so. We're going to have to go all the way back. For those of you who are new, apologies. But for those of you who've been here a while, you know I like to try and go back as far as I can. And I have been, I say 2 days, I spent 2 days trying to kind of like compile all this stuff together. But I've been watching stuff and kind of like immersing myself in attempting to understand what's going on in the Middle East for quite a while. There is somebody who I really rate, and I highly recommend if you want to kind of understand the historical context, Persia, Roman Empire falling, all of that sort of stuff, you absolutely need to look into a guy called Raymond Ibrahim. He does appear on the Winston Marshall show a couple of times, but he also he appears with Yasmin Boland, sorry. Yasmin Boland, who married the ISIS, Al-Qaeda person who she didn't realize that she was palmed off to them, so the Canadian. So that's where I first came across him. Do have his books, just need to get around to kind of reading the books, but he's got a YouTube channel. So I highly rate Raymond Ibrahim, and it always surprises me the things that he's saying. I'm like, oh yeah, I knew that, and then I kind of chat to other people and they're like, oh my god, wait a minute, I didn't know that. And I was like, okay, that's strange, but I figured out what it was. So since childhood, we used to watch, like, so this is what we used to have on the telly as kids. All the archaeological digs, the history TV shows. I absolutely adored history, and I still do. Maybe this is why I always go back to the beginning. I'm just kind of frame it because we are going like a long way back first, building context. But he kind of really goes into the complexities of what's really going on, for 1500 years and before then, right? So like even if you don't buy the books and read the books, or get them audio or through Audible, go and watch the shows that he's doing. The Winston Marshall ones are okay. There's the latest Winston Marshall one's pretty interesting, where Raymond actually kind of pushes back on the whole Christianity is peace, and so I anything kind of pushing back on the fake Christian narrative is obviously going to get me very, very excited, just because we're whitewashing everything. But So I highly recommend those. And that will help you kind of understand some of the context that I'm going to gloss over, which is important. There is also, we did a dive into what's going on in Syria. We did a dive into what happened in Nigeria. We did Venezuela. We did understanding whether Islam is actually incompatible with the West. And we went into a lot of the conflicts around Persia, Ottoman Empire, all of those things. So I'm going to go through those quickly for context. But for those of you who are kind of new here, sorry guys, we've been doing it. We've been here for years. Okay, but what is interesting is when we start pulling it even closer to what's going now, everybody's convinced that the whole Epstein files are a distraction. 100% are, you know, there's some dodgy shit and it, you know, but when we actually really look into the things that people aren't talking about with regards to Epstein, everybody's focused on the sensationalism, is you're about to see how he potentially came into play in Iran in the 80s, right? So this is pulling it right up to where we are today. So first up, 1400-year like whistle-stop tour of what was going on. So Persia, this is pre-Muhammad, right? So before, this is what makes me chuckle. Anybody suggesting that Palestine was Muslim and always been Muslim, it clearly wasn't. So, you know, Judaism was there first, and then Christianity came along, and then Muhammad came along. But before that, we had Zoroastrian, and Persia was very heavily Zoroastrian. They did have Christian pockets, they did have Jewish pockets. Cyrus the Great was knocking around over there, and he kind of did the first allowed people to kind of coexist with regards to the different religions, and people just kind of wanted to have a prosperous empire, right? So then we have, you know, we have the Romans rise up, we have the Greeks, we have, so there's this, we cannot look at the last 5 years and then just go, I don't understand how this stuff happened, right? We actually do have to remember the very, very long history, which where we've all kind of got intermingled with, right? So then we had, so we've got the Romans kind of knocking around at the same time. Everybody's trying to build an empire. Everybody's trying to carve out and expand, and it's just what they do, and they still do now, right? So why they did it? Because they just greed, money, fame, fortune. You keep the populace happy, cull the population, whatever reason it was going on. We had Persia and the Romans, who, if you're kind of looking into this, they'll call it the Byzantine, but they were Romans, right? They were fighting each other like non-stop. Ended up being completely exhausted. Muhammad comes along, you know, for the first few years, nobody was kind of paying attention to him at all whatsoever. Then he did a deal with bandits, pirates, started doing raids, kind of, you think of like Viking, for those of you who are kind of like European, kind of Viking style outlook, right? He's going along, trying to all of it. So before this, right, he was talking about like very much on the same kind of thread as Jesus, like peace, love, just nobody gave a shit. It was only when he started kind of getting the money, bringing the tribes together, you know, collecting slaves, all of those things, all the bandits, did people really start to pay attention to what was going on. Then we end up with, you know, them fighting the Romans, and kind of the collapse of the Roman Empire. What we have, you know, we have the Dark Ages. Like everybody kind of, we talk about the Dark Ages a lot, right? But what was it? Well, it was when the Muslims had kind of pushed back and taken Egypt. So they took Egypt around 700-800, just as the dawn of all of this is going on. So FYI, algebra, all that stuff that's said to be like, you know, Muslim, I don't want to say intelligence, but Muslim, civility and all of it. That was Persia. That was pre-Muhammad, right? So you can't come into a country, take over the country, and then lay claim to. It's like what? Okay, so it's literally happening in the UK right now, right? So we get shown on the BBC that Queen Elizabeth I was black. It's not true. Never happened. It's like people invading and then saying, "Yep, we were the people who were responsible for the Industrial Revolution." You kind of weren't, but that's not how it works. But this is what's going on. Like we've got revisionist history happening a lot. So the Persians, they were educated, they were civilized, they kind of coexisted around the time where we've got Greece was, with scholars and so it was not technologically advanced like we are today, but actually quite an advanced civilization with regards to liberal and progressive ideas. And I do not mean like men and women body swapping, but I mean with, opportunities for people, freedom of religion, women being allowed to exist without being beaten. So it was quite, a pleasantish place to exist and live, right? So then we have, Christians doing pilgrimage and Jewish people doing pilgrimage to Jerusalem, the holy city, because, we've kind of gone through like a few hundred years by now. The Muslims have taken over, right? That kind of area and now control, Constantinople was renamed, but it's Istanbul now. Anyway, so they kind of like everywhere was taken, but big Christians used to go pilgrimage, right? So sometimes they would kind of be sent pilgrimage because they've been naughty, like off you go. Sometimes people would do it because they're pious. Lots of the times the members of the royal family and lords and ladies would go pilgrimage. And what was happening was the Muslims were raping, abusing, torturing, kidnapping, and enslaving people. And this is where the Knights Templar came about, and the Knights of they ended up being the Knights of Malta, or they became the Knights of Malta. I can't remember what the other name of the knights were. Templars and it escapes me. So two lots of groups of pious Christian warriors, right? With like early years, and their job was to protect the pilgrims. That's it, right? They didn't go and rampage, and but the job was just to make sure like anybody who was going on pilgrimage could get there without being raped, abused, and brutalized. Bearing in mind, we have it in the Quran that one of the things that Muhammad was saying to encourage and get the bandits, which became the kind of like the Somali pirates, right? That's kind of the mindset that kind of is probably the closest that we have in today's world, if you want to kind of figure out like align it with something today. So Somali pirates, right? And so he kind of told to get everybody riled up to go and attack the Romans, right? To take over Rome, to take over Egypt, to take over all of these places which were Roman. He would, tell them, you go and get the yellow, right? And the yellow is with regards to yellowed head. They're just slaves. They're just there for sex. They are worthless. They're nothing, which is why we have the grooming gangs and the rape gangs like we do. Like this is how they justify it. Remember, the Quran is not like the Bible. The Bible invites introspection. It invites reflection. The Quran is an instruction manual. Right? You must do. This is how you behave. This is how you beat your wife. This is how you show up on this day. It's an instruction manual because it is the written word of God. So going against it means you're going against God, right? That's what many people don't seem to understand about the Quran, right? Good Muslims are the terrorists. Bad Muslims kind of doing the Christian thing with the Quran and going, I actually quite like my Christian neighbor. I'm not going to wage a war against them, right? So good Muslims are the terrorists, right? Because they are following the Quran to the letter. So that's where the Crusades come about, right? So then we've got the Crusades, and we have like multiple Crusades, and Richard the Lionheart would be turning in his fucking grave to see what has happened to the United Kingdom. He led a crusade against the Muslims, against the hordes of rapists and abusers. Like that, it boggles me that we've got to a position where in the last 70 years, it's literally taken 70 years to systematically destroy the country, which has stood for thousands. Like England, Scotland, and Wales as countries, we have been here for a very long fucking time. It's taken them 70 years to completely destroy us. Off the back of 2 world wars, where we were fucking bankrupted. Thanks, America. FYI. Okay, so then we have the Crusades, and they have multiple Crusades, and some of them were really successful, but there wasn't very many people, right? So we never went full weight of the empire to kind of take any of this land back, right? I mean, it wasn't always just, it was European Christians kind of collectively together. And so there were battles where there was 2,000 crusaders against tens of thousands Muslims, right? And holding weight and taking ground back, right? That was the might of the crusade. It's how hundreds of years the crusades were lasting, it genuinely, I mean, like the millions of people that like over in the Arab world compared to like not very many people like knights on a horseback, right? The sheer skill, determination, and veracity of the crusaders always gets ignored. Like we watch, if you've ever seen like 300, which is kind of talking about which again is against Persia, right? Spartans. So there's 300 that hold the pass, and I think this is all, obviously the story's a little bit not quite accurate, but I want you to kind of think of it on that kind of level. That is pretty much what was going on. So the Crusades, obviously, the Knights Templar end up getting, Friday the 13th. They end up all getting like excommunicated. They say that they're in league with the devils, or the Baal worship, and all of these things are going on because they became very, very rich and profitable. They also kind of did a deal. Well, a small faction did a deal over some navy ships, which is a bit dodgy, and they got excommunicated. So the church turned on the Templars, and then there was no more warriors, no more warrior knights in order to protect the pilgrims. Nobody going over and fighting. So then, obviously, Islam was able to expand. So much so, it expanded into Europe. Right, so we have the Muslims and the Jewish pact inside Spain, which is where we end up with the Spanish Inquisition and the Reconquista. So it never made it to England before, but we've just fucking invited them in. It's awful. Okay, so then, and I do not care what religion you are. Just to premise for anybody who's new, what I do care about is inviting people who want to destroy the country in and pretending that I'm the bad person, right? I've got friends who are Muslim, I've got friends who are Jewish, I've got friends who are Christian. I also know some Sikhs. So like, I don't care what religion you are. but it's the 45,000 jihadis that concern me, right? And the boat jumpers, who we know nothing about. So then we have the Reconquista, and we kind of like, it gets pushed back out of Europe. Then, you know, jump ahead a little bit, we have Britain and Russia, like early 1700s, late 1700s, early 1800s. We have Russia expanding, like forcefully expanding down into the Middle East. So Britain was already there. We already kind of had India by this point. England, Britain were, you know, we had the trade war, the Opium War with China was going on. So we were kind of, we needed our kind of Middle Eastern bases, because that's where the opium was coming from, which was enabling us to destabilize China. Right? China is important. This is like mid 1800s. Russia is like pushing and pushing and pushing, trying to get warm water ports, which started to terrify us, the Brits, because they were coming in hot, right? So what we have in the Middle East is the British Empire and the Russians kind of going at it. China's like on the fringe. They're not... they're there, but they're not actually a geopolitical player at this point in time. So we then have lots of fighting. We have so Russia's using like weight and force, right, and fighting their way through. Britain using diplomacy, doing deals. So think IMF. Think what China's doing now with their Belt and Road Initiative. And I keep saying this. They literally went, oh, that's a really fucking good idea. And they have just copied everything that we did to build our empire in like the 1800s. And that's what China's doing now, right? Because China now has the money. China now has the influence, the opportunity. But at the time of the 1800s, we were able to do that because we launched the Industrial Revolution, right? It actually started in Telford. So well done, Telford, with the world's first iron bridge. Okay, so Telford's fault for all this fucking shitstorm is in Bard Kinga and Brunel. Who'd have thunk it? Okay, so we had the Industrial Revolution. So what did that do? That meant that we needed to sell our shit that we were building, but also we needed resources, right? So we needed the minerals, we needed the cheap labor, we needed all of these things to carve out our and hold on to our territories. And as we expanded, we just did deals. And basically, we have... this leads us right up to 1900s, early 1900s. And this is when Russia and the UK, but Britain, end up kind of making a deal around Iran, which wasn't called Iran at that point. Russia got like the north, and then Britain got the south. And the south is where the oil was. The north had some minerals, and then there was this strip of land in the middle, which was kind of like, yeah, you can have this bit yourself, right? But it wasn't taken by force. They were bankrupt. They had no money. This is the fall of the Ottoman Empire. They had no money. They literally sold the family silver in order to... So the Ottomans aligned with the Brits to keep the Russians out, and we just we financially fucked them over. And then we did a really good deal for us, not so good for them, which enabled us to get the oil fields. Bearing in mind, they didn't know how to get the oil out of the ground, right? This is what everybody forgets, right? That if you've got oil but you can't do anything with it, then there was no technology, right? So we brought the technology, we brought the industrial, the capacity for this oil to be taken out of the ground. And in order to do that, we then took like 90% of the profits. that's where BP came from. It was the Anglo-Iranian oil company. And then, so 50 odd years of being ripped off and, you know, continuously still kind of threatened by Russia, all of that stuff going on. So 50 years of that led to a pushback, the first proper pushback. But what we have inside that 50 years, right? So that's 1907, we create that deal where Britain ends up magically getting the South. And I'm going to tell you, it's not magically getting the South. We have to remember what was going on in the context of stuff around then. We were already using, so mid-1800s, everybody talks about the Industrial Revolution, right? The Industrial Revolution, but we also had the Intellectual Revolution. We had loads of investigations into paranormal, into psychic abilities. We had the rise of dowsing and remote viewing, and all of that stuff was happening in the late 1800s. We had using sound to heal. We had, so all of the stuff that's kind of like breaking now was all going on in the 1800s. So why I think that's important is, remember, we needed the resources. Like, why would we be pushing into a country when we didn't know whether they had that? If you look into Abbé Mehmet, who is a French, he's no longer alive, Christian father, what is it? Abbé, in an abbey, what are they? Monk, there we go. He was like a world-renowned dowser. He was often asked by the Pope. He found things for the Pope. He found children, he found water, and he found oil. And so that was, you know, so it was called radiesthesia. So they were looking into energy, understanding atoms, not to the same technical capacity we have now to actually see these things, but they were doing hell loads of experiments and understanding and actually really utilizing the spiritual world, if you want to kind of call it that, to succeed, right? That's how they found the fucking oil fields in America, right? It wasn't like they just tripped and fell, there's an oil field. This is how they were doing it. They were using dowsing. So we would have known. And actually, like, this stuff was kind of, if you look into Elizabeth I, like, she was already kind of like dabbling into this sort of shit. But in 1800s, when they had the Industrial Revolution, we started, utilizing the scientific method, and testing and experimenting and perfecting. So we then got the South. So what happened next? Well, 10 years after the deal that we made in the Middle East, we have the overthrow of the Russian czars, right? We have the Bolshevik Revolution. We have, bearing in mind that oil barons and stuff have already made quite a bit of money by this point. Influence on Wall Street, very different. Definitely, we've kind of dived into this before. So Wall Street, behind what was going on in Russia, linked into potentially expansions, what was going on in Iran, in the Middle East. Like, you remember carving out places for minerals and resources. It's about land grabs for resources and money. They're just greedy motherfuckers. Then we have World War I, then we have World War II. So by the time we get to 1951, where the then president of Iran decides that he's going to nationalize the oil, right? So renege on the deal and just decide, fuck this shit, we're going to get the profits. Obviously, Britain were like, no, that ain't happening. So then we kind of get into a tussle, and we get like the USA, France, and I can't remember which other country kind of like comes along to kind of simmer it down a bit. So then what happens is he gets ousted. So this is the CIA MI6 coup that happened in 1953. So the then president gets ousted. And there's a deal. This is where the Shah comes, gets propped up, right? So there's a deal where Iran gets 50%, UK, USA, France, and another country. I genuinely can't remember what the other country is called. It's a really insignificant amount of money they get. I'm sure the country is quite significant to its people. That's not what I meant. So out of the remaining 50%, UK gets 40, America gets 40%. Something which people are not reporting. They're literally talking about the 1907 deal and then forgetting everything that happened afterwards, which is just fucking retarded. America gets 40%. And the main reason why this kind of happened is so America obviously had a monopoly on trade, and they had to make sure. So basically what Britain did is they kind of like stopped and they stopped any of the oil getting out. So what they didn't want to happen was Iran to go into like mass production and then just fuck everything up. So it had to be like staged oil coming out. You had to get the American oil barons on board, which means they wanted profit, right? So then the Shah, of which the new Shah is kind of like the son, right? And the Iranian people, some of them want the monarchy, some of them want the IRGC to stay, and then the vast majority kind of don't want any of them. There's also the MEK, which we've discussed before. The MEK, like they had links to communism. They ended up in exile in Canada, but they're not. They have supposedly distanced themselves from communism. However, still kind of seems like a bit of a cult. There's lots of kind of ex-members who are saying it's very cult-like. So I don't know, but they need to have they need to have an election once we get to that point. But what we have is, so America had to be involved, right? So they get 40%, the UK gets 40%. So then the Shah's really, really fucking happy, right? And he then decides, rather than, you know, being diplomatic and supporting his people and all of those things, he behaves like any other fucking royal family, and he starts hoarding the wealth. Then the people on the ground start to feel the pinch. They start to really struggle financially, and then it's really easy for the religious fundamental extremists to start gaining a foothold. And this is where Khamenei comes in. Him and obviously others, he didn't do it all on his own. They were behind, you know, the 1979 Iran Revolution. And it was not overthrown in 79 by the CIA and the MI6, the British. That was 1953, right? They had it good. We were getting 50%, not having to do anything. And throughout the revolution, they were funding the Shah, right? Still funding the Shah, trying their fucking best to kind of get rid of the jihadis. And so American intelligence didn't even know it was going to pop up, right? So it's supposedly this whole Khamenei revolution took everybody by surprise. I don't know why it took everybody by surprise. Okay, so probably took everybody by surprise because they weren't paying attention, because this is also at the same time Cold War's going on. Everybody's like obsessed with Russia. You take your eyes off the things that you think are already resolved. Where are we up to? Okay, 1979, and then we have the Islamic Revolution, and we have, you know, just full fucking jihad going on inside. Believed to be around 1 million people have been slaughtered by the IRGC since kind of coming into power. So their own people have been slaughtered by their leaders, like for standing up. So I know lots of people have only just woken up to the plight of Iranians, but they have been systematically slaughtering young people for years and years and years. I've been following it since 2020. You know, girls and boys, especially like young students. So like, we hate the fucking lefties over here who are just insane with what they are protesting about, and they're not necessarily left over there. I'm just saying, but that's kind of, it's that capacity to learn and the opportunity to learn in university, and opportunity to meet people that you don't meet in your own little on your street, does enable you to have those types of conversations. So lots of the singers, songwriters, podcasters, journalists, independent journalists, they've just been like picked up, arrested, shot down, hung, set on fire, beaten in the streets. Like, all of that has been going on systematically for like 47, 50 years, right? So they didn't just wake up January the 1st, 2026 and decide to protest. So we do have to remember that. Like, lots of people have been dying for a very long time over in Iran. And that's why the Persians, right? The Persians have been fighting back, which I think So anyway, so that's kind of over there. We've had the Russia, Britain kind of fight. So we also have France. I mean, France were knocking around, but not into this. Like, they were around with around the Levant, and they were kind of like championing, Christians and being the Christian protectors, specifically with the Maronite Christians. So France was kind of like in there, but as France always does, they get taken over first, let in the bodies first. But we also have to remember, so World War II, we had so the Nazis and good Muslims aligned, right? So we had specific ayatollahs were honorary Aryans, and had lots of conversations with Hitler, right? So my enemy of my enemy is my friend. So after World War II, like the UK was just like absolutely exhausted and fucked. Russia was absolutely exhausted and fucked. Everybody kind of took their eyes off what was going on in the Middle East, and then we ended up with where we are now. That is not to say that we also didn't have multiple CIA overthrows, destabilizations. But remember, why were they destabilizing the Middle East? Is because of Russia's mass expansion. So the whole point was to beat Russia back, right? Communism, that's the Cold War. So by kind of overthrowing Russian friendlies with non-Russian friendlies, CIA and MI6 made everything like 300 times fucking worse, I would say. Okay. And then obviously we allowed Israel to carve out its little home. Never really kind of did it properly, and just threw the Jewish in the middle and been like, fucking deal with it, right? And so it was never going to be peace in the Middle East after World War II. Like, that was just insane. And it's been a really long time coming, what we've got happening right now. Interesting little thing to bear in mind. We had, so throughout the Islamic Revolution, IRCG being like responsible. So after World War II, and we had the rise of nuclear, right? So Eisenhower and everybody decided that everybody should have this information, right? Everybody should have this information. So we should never really get to the position where we are going to just blow everybody up, right? So we want everybody to be able to have like energy independence and all of those things, which obviously was absolutely going to piss the oil barons off. But this is how Iran got, the capacity and started building the capacity for uranium enrichment, and the capacity for nuclear. And that was all fine while and you know, they were being funded. So remember, like the Shah had agreed that UK, USA would get 50% of all the profits. So UK and USA were funding with weapons, were funding with Iran. You know, this is how you deal with nuclear stuff. We're supporting them to build stuff, industrialize. So then when the IRGC came along, they've got lots of fucking weapons. They've got uranium and nuclear capabilities because we fucking enabled them to have it. What they did is they just hit hard with sanctions, and they said they just like froze profits, froze oil profits. Then along comes Obama. Weeks before Trump's so in 2016, right? So there's been like mass. So where are we? 1979. The sanctions, cutting Iran off, like because they are terrorizing like the West, right? We've got bombs, we've got jihad, we've got all of that shit going on. You know, death to America, we got, you know, the Middle East, you got Osama bin Laden, Saddam Hussein, and yes, we've got like fucking dodgy CIA money going, causing, but you know, on the surface, they're coming at us, right? So we have sanctions. January the 17th, 22nd, and the 5th of February, what we have is 1.7 billion being given back to the Iranian regime. We have 400 million wired through Swiss banks and flown as pallets of cash. That's what drops on the 17th, 22nd, and 5th. So up until this point, like Iran was struggling financially, right? Other than so which is where China came in. So West was sanctioning Iran. China started propping them up with the Belt and Road Initiative, you know, sending them loans. China gets 80 to 90% of Iran's oil, so mutually beneficial there, right? So we got Russia kind of got pushed back. China was allowed to rise because there always needs to be some kind of fucking enemy for us, you know, for the war machine. China was allowed to rise. And they're the ones who then started kind of coming into the Middle East and across to Africa, which is where you get the Belt and Road. So China's been pumping fucking billions into Iran. But all of a sudden, the Obama implemented the JCPOA, and just allowing Iran to fucking access all this money, which gave them loads of fucking money to fund Hezbollah, to fund Hamas, to really start ramping shit up, right? The most retarded move in the world. And I urge you to listen to the Putin Oliver Stone interviews. And we have Putin kind of mentioning that he didn't understand, like he was pushing back then, and still now pushing for Iran to not have nuclear capabilities with regards to weapons. However, he does think they should have it for energy, right? Which is what that's not what he was saying 10 years ago. 10 years ago, he was like, they just can't fucking have it. But now Russia's got money invested, right? It's profitable for Russia, with Iran doing well, right? So Iran gives so Iran supplies Russia with arms, particularly drones that they're using over in Ukraine. I agree with what the Russians are doing in Ukraine. So this is not as black and white as Russia's bad, Iran's bad, like, because it's a fucking hot mess, right? So Israel's not all bad with some of the shit they're doing. Some of the way they're doing it is not so great. But if you're being attacked, surely you're gonna, like, do you wait until you're being maimed and attacked, like that whole. So yeah, so 10 years ago, Russia, Putin was saying that it was the most insane thing that Obama did was pull out of the agreement that so because Russia's always had very, very good ties with Iran. Now you know why, and the Middle East. So now Obama just decided, well, we're not going to do that anymore. We're not going to stop them, right? And I never really understood. I was like, well, I don't understand why. Why would you do that? And obviously, you would do that to fucking launch a war, start a war. Remember, Hillary wasn't supposed to lose the 2016 election. So this is strategic. This is very strategic. We were due to have mass casualties, mass fucking events, mass terror across the West. Why? Because that brings about more surveillance. That brings about more crackdown. Like, so when did they start? What also happened in 2016? The UN sustainability goals were formalized by pretty much everybody in the West. So we had David Cameron fucking slinking off and signing it. And this is why the UK voting out of Brexit was so fucking bad for them. Right? So they are pushing for the one world government, the one world religion. Hey, Edwin, they are pushing for their new world order, and it's all about to start coming to a head 2016. And the UK fucked shit up by voting Brexit, and the US fucked shit up by voting Trump in. Right? So what we were seeing was that they were aligning everything to completely obliterate the West, and put us back in our fucking boxes. So, which is why we have and they're still trying. So remember, we got Russia and China heavily involved in the Middle East, with China with the Belt and Road, Russia long standing. China has invested billions in the last 15 years over into Iran. They also recently did, this is like 2021, the 25-year China-Iran cooperation deal, which is $400 billion investment. We have Iran is building weapons for China and Russia. We also have people need to remember this hit on Iran that's just happened hasn't come like in an isolated incident. Trump has been laying the groundwork since being re-elected. We have November 2024. It's called, the maximum pressure revival. He has sanctions. We have Iran at 2025. Israel goes to start World War III, and Trump goes and blows up the uranium enrichment plants and the nuclear plants. Right, very limited strikes. We then have attacks coordinated with the Nigerian government to stop and block ISIS. We have Venezuela, which is like huge money into China, like Iran, and oil enrichment and arms deals going through Venezuela. We have the cabal trying to block and give away, block Greenland. Remember, we did the episode on Greenland. That's like the easiest way for China and Russia to get through into Europe. We also have fucking Starmer trying to give away the fucking Chagos Islands, which is a strategic military base for the USA. It is not Mauritian. They have not been Mauritian ever, right? They were the islands were British colony. we gave Mauritius their fucking independence, which excluded the Chagos, right? We paid them £3 million. Like back then, there was a lot of money. Like in the 60s, we paid them £3 million to keep the Chagos Islands. Mauritius does not have a fucking claim on Chagos at all. Like it does not in any way, shape, or form. And so we had Trump trying to do a deal a lot. Like he's tried and tried and tried. So remember, Trump said, you come to the table, you do not have fucking nuclear weapons. If you do not sign, it's fucking game over. But what you'll notice is Trump did that after all of the other things. What we also have had going on in the background is we have Lebanon disarming Hezbollah. That's been going on since 2024. We have Syria, like overthrew the Assad regime. And I know, everybody's saying, you know, because he is ex-Al Qaeda aligned, and you know, everybody's got this fucking jihadi. But what has he actually been doing on the ground? On the ground, he's been stabilizing, he's been unifying, he's been pushing back against the Taliban. Yes, the Kurds are being squeezed and pushed, but they wanted to carve their own land in Syria. And he's kind of saying, let's not do this. So they're being squeezed, and he's still bad. He's not a goodie. I'm not saying he's a goodie, but everybody's saying like he's releasing all the jihadis from the prisons. Like, do you remember when we compared how many were being released before him and how many are being released now? Like it's like he's stopping a lot of this shit and trying to stabilize Syria, and is aligning himself with the West. We have the Saudis aligning themselves with the West. We have the UAE aligning themselves with the West. We have Somaliland, right, has left Somalia like properly, and they already kind of gained independence in the 60s. Remember, we went through this. We have so much going on in the Middle East. That was a weird fucking flash. With so much going on in the Middle East that it already moved and flicked and kind of moved away from. And Iran was in a position where they are funding the terrorists, the Muslim Brotherhood, all of that. And actually, you know, the Muslims in the UK who are going to the mosques, who are fucking giving the money, are then still funding the jihadi regimes, right? So we have, Iran was already isolated before he decided to like push and reinstall the right, this is just it, right? You can't have this thing. And so I think this is why, personally, this is why I believe he did the like really targeted strikes in July last year, June, July last year, is he wasn't ready to do the proper all out like 4-week war, right? Because we hadn't had Venezuela done then. We hadn't had all the other stuff that came after the strikes. He just wasn't ready yet. So we had with regards to the Chagos, remember that we were told in 2019 we had to fucking give it to Mauritius, and we were just like, no. So we just kept fucking ignoring them because the International Criminal Court has actually got no jurisdiction. But why would they want us to give it away, right? So now you know why they want us to give it away, because it gives, and Mauritius is very closely linked to China, right? So they want to give Greenland to China, they want to give Mauritius to China, sorry, Chagos to China, want to cut off the West capacity to defend themselves because they need us gone. They need us gone first. They need us gone first, right? They do need. They hate. This is the elite. You want to talk about racist? The elites are so fucking racist, right? They are the eugenic puppet masters who believe in Darwinism theory and the non-white population being subhuman and inferior, right? They're just using them to get rid of us. I mean, I would. If I was an evil dictator, I am not the person who's gonna fucking get involved. I'm gonna get these two people to just fucking kill each other and then take the spoils. Remember, they've been doing this for thousands of years. This is not new to them at all. Well, this part is new, the fact that we're all fucking having conversations globally. Okay, so we had Trump giving an ultimatum, right? You've got 10 days to come to the table. 3 times Iran said no, started stalling, right? So everybody's saying, so we've got people fucking the bloody, what's that one? Caterpillar-eyed influencers talking about the fact that they were in peace talks. They weren't in peace talks at all whatsoever. They were 100% stalling. So I'm going to show you some satellite images. And this is what was going on behind the scenes when they were, here we go. So they're stalling. So what we have down here, let me stop it the other way a bit. Okay, so on the bottom right, you can see like this whole complex, lots of different buildings. What they did is they slowly started backfilling all of this stuff. Right, this is like munitions factory. This is like where they're creating weapons and missiles. So what we have is they just started hiding, and this is a nuclear complex, soil-covered tunneled entrances. So they literally started covering it up in preparation, right? So they knew, they had no intention of a peace deal. So what they knew was that Trump was a man of his fucking word. Right, because we just had Greenland, where Trump says, either you give it me peacefully or I'm just gonna fucking take it. And then he ended up getting it. Right? He's a man of his word. The Iranian regime have probably read his books. Right? They know, like, art of the deal. They know if he's saying he's gonna do something, he's gonna fucking do it. So they knew they had this short window to prepare defensively because an attack was going to come, right? So in January, when they started slaughtering their fucking protesters, like tens of thousands en masse, and Trump said, you know, very publicly, stop this or we're coming. Like, there was no way Trump was going to get to this point where he wasn't actually going to attack Iran. Like, he's not he's not fucking Keir Starmer, like, who's a bellend. Right, let's just throw that out there. He's an absolute fucking bellend. So there was no way Trump wasn't going to follow through at all. It just wasn't going to happen. And this is why I said last week, it saddens me because I wanted the Iranian people to be the people who did it, right? Themselves. We are global. It is different to when, you know, we had our peasant revolts, and they have been, right? They have been standing up. And they asked for help, and they keep asking for help. And I think if you, at some point, you have to protect yourself as well, right? So we have to remember that the IRGC has been actively trying to, and been calling for jihad, death to the West, vocally. Like, we have it and we see it in the mosques in the UK, right? There's a fucking knife attack. I think they called it a knife attack. There was attempted murder today in Edinburgh today, attempted murder on ethnic British people. There was an axe attack yesterday on a police officer. There are daily rapes and jihad going on inside Europe, across Europe. So for all the fucking dickhead influencers who supposedly have been against the grooming gangs and have been against the rise of Islamification in the United Kingdom who's now saying Trump shouldn't have done what he did. Like, what are you expecting? Like, we had MI5 release a statement over Christmas saying they foiled what was expected to be the most devastating terrorist plot in the UK over Christmas. Like, we are not in a position where we are fucking out of the way and not, there's no way we would not have been part of this war. What is absolutely diabolical and disgusting is the fact that we weren't part of the conversation beforehand. That shows you just how disgusting Starmer is. But for all of the Americans out there saying you're only helping us retroactively and you're only helping us after you were attacked, can I just say Pearl Harbor to you? Because it took you fucking years to come and help us when we were holding off the Nazis by ourselves, right? Because France was overrun. And when I say by ourselves, I mean with the Commonwealth. Like, we fucking rallied all of us. So get off your fucking high horse to all of the people in America, because it took 24 hours for us to get in fucking involved. Less than 24 hours. Like, you waited years on the fucking sidelines until we were almost destroyed as a fucking nation. And then you profited off the back of it, bankrupting the fuck out of us and taking over our territories. And that's fine, because I don't agree with, empires rise and fall, but you need to stop fucking believing you are these almighty fucking saviors. A lot of the shit that's going on in the Middle East is your fault too. Right? So take some fucking responsibility for what's going on and recognize why we've ended up where we are, right? Because this is what I'm seeing across X, and it's really fucking pissing me off. Really pissing me off. Oh, and FYI, re Pearl Harbor, we fucking told you it was going to happen, and it was your own president who did nothing. Those cables exist. Those telegrams exist of Churchill telling you it was gonna fucking happen. So that was your government who decided to sacrifice your people so that they could get involved in the war and start earning some fucking money. Just throwing that out there before we get all this revisionist fucking history again. Okay. So we're kind of right up to where we are now. Trump says it's going to take 4 weeks. Grok reckons 6 to 12 weeks is more likely. It is possible in 4 weeks, but we do have to remember that your intelligence is never 100%, right? You never really know. So we did have the Gulf War took 6 weeks. We're around 6 weeks. So things can be done quickly. We also don't actually know all of the tech that America has, right? All of the tech they're going to potentially use. Do you keep seeing those like random flashes at the screen? It's really dodgy. So yes, there's 6 to 12 weeks is probably more realistic. And I would say, especially with what we have is the cabal, like purposely dragging its feet, right? Trying to sell and get rid of the Chagos, blocking the capacity for, allowing China to build its fucking super embassy. We've got all of this shit where the cabal is going to keep blocking and stopping and blocking and stopping while it can. But it is possible. We have to remember, yes, Trump said he would not go into Iran, right? Things fucking change. And this is why I think you should never make never statements because like you don't know. Like, if you're on the outside and you don't have the intelligence, and I don't mean like IQ intelligence, I mean you don't have the real world ground intelligence because you're on the outside of things, you really shouldn't be saying I will never XYZ. But also, Trump does not want war. He did all the stuff in the background to try and avoid this, but at what point, this is a real question people have to ask themselves. At what point do you decide to stand up and defend yourself? If you have intelligence that states, and I've just shown you the fucking satellite imagery, is Iran were preparing for war with the US and, you know, proper war again with Israel. They were preparing for that. Were they gonna start it? But so the what is true is there was supposedly, right? I don't have access to MI5, MI6, CIA, or like any of that information. What we know publicly is there was no immediate threat, right? So it's not like if Trump acts tomorrow, it's too late. However, they were preparing and they were reorganizing and they were getting fucking money from China to be remilitarized. So they were gearing up for war. I mean, do you just fucking sit and wait? Or do you act when they're not looking? Right? If you're going to do, and remember, he gave them multiple times they came to the table to stop this. He didn't just, it has been presented, and again, I don't agree with murder, state sanctioned, not like I do not agree with war. However, I agree with the right to defend yourself if you're being attacked, right? If somebody broke into my house, I would fucking defend myself, and I've told you what I'd do. I'd grab my cast iron frying pans, and I would go straight for the fucking knees. That's what I would do, right? I would cripple the fuck out of those people. I wouldn't kill them. I would make sure they couldn't move, and then I would call the police. Come into my home, I'm going to make sure you're not going to do anything dodgy. I do believe we should have just, if there's a way to round these people up and then stick them on a fucking island and let them cannibalize each other, that's preferable. But it isn't Venezuela. It's not the same, right? Remember Venezuela, they'd been having back channel conversations through the CIA for months. It was already agreed it was going to happen that way. Like, diplomacy had failed in Iran. Anybody pushing for diplomacy, like, that is what had been tried for 18 months. It had failed. They were rearming. You don't rearm unless you're going to go to war. Look at what fucking Nazi Germany did. They were rearming. They were rearming underground. They were diverting funds. This is literally what Iran are doing. Like, I don't understand how people can't see, like, because it's the same fucking thing. If we'd have paid attention to what was going on in Germany when it was being reported that they were rearming when they were not allowed, and maybe just fucking sent over some bombers, we could have ended the World War II before it started. And obviously that wasn't going to happen because it was all orchestrated and all funded by Wall Street, and it had to happen, and it was a test ground, blah, 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 blah. But we're going to play like the hypotheticals, right? But at the moment, they were rearming in Iran. They were already becoming isolated by the rest of the Middle East. They were gearing up to fucking have death rattle one last ditch attempt, right? Because they are fundamentalists who believe they will be martyred if they go down, right? It's not the same. Their entire outlook and ideology is not the same. Like, Trump wants to prevent war, prevent death, prevent killing. Like, the number of times he just said people need to stop fucking killing each other, 100% agree with him. That's not what they want. They want the global caliphate. The only way Islam has spread in 1400 years is through violence, rape, murder. Like, that is the only way that they know how to advance their it's the only way it's gonna happen for them, right? Yes, they've got slightly more sophisticated, by using, and observing, and, because MI5, sorry, MI6 and CIA were funding them and training them, and we have fucking Israeli Mossad fucking training them, right? Because they were like, "Well, we train you and then we fight Russia, and now you have all these fucking skills," because we have retards in charge of the intelligence agencies. Like, absolute fucking retards, of which the MI5, or head of MI5 or MI6, I can't remember which one, was a good old friend of Jeffrey Epstein. So we're going to go on to in a second, see how he came into play in the Iran Contra stuff. Very interestingly. So they do not want a stable, peaceful world where people the IRGC, right? This is not all Muslims. This is not secular Muslims. Like, that we love the bad Muslims, right? Because the bad Muslims are the ones who are like, I like my Christian friends. I quite like I quite like the West, right? I quite like the idea of peacefully existing. Like, you be Christians over there, we'll be Muslims over here. I don't see why we can't, have trade deals and mutually beneficial agreements, right? That's why you've seen them all signing up to the Abraham Accords. This is not what the IRGC want. And this is not what the Muslim Brotherhood want. This is not what Hezbollah wants. This is not what Hamas wants. This is not what Palestine wants. This is not what all of those jihadis want. They want the absolute annihilation of anybody who is not Muslim. That is their fundamental goal, and they will not stop, because it's not a job. It is the thing that gets them. If you are told your entire life you've been propagandized and brainwashed into believing that you are the good person, right? This is the two sides in every story. They don't believe they're the baddies. They believe we're the baddies, right? And in order to, they are following God's word as they know it. So to defy the idea of a global caliphate brought about by violence, they are defying the word of God, right? I don't know how to explain this to people really understand what's actually going on. And everybody always frames it, it's just about the oil, it's just about the resources. Okay, but the people who are in control of those resources are using that to destroy you. And we've just had Gorton and Denton, a green election, like fake media saying Zach Polanski will be PM. He won't. What's going on in Gorton and Denton? Fucking, we have Manchester, we have the bombing, we have the fucking grooming gangs that have been hidden up, we have like fucking mafia arms trade going on in there. Manchester, Gorton and Denton is not representative of the vast proportion of the population in the UK. What was the most exciting thing about that election was the 24% that went reform, because that shows you the stronghold of the left is broken. And 50% of all the postal votes were Labour. I mean, that should tell you everything you need to know about how Labour gets their votes. So Labour lost out, right? So that was not a conservative area that swung green. That was a Labour area where they had fucking bribed the Muslim bloc for votes votes on previous elections, and the Muslim bloc said no. And they instead went with the jihadis, right? Because you've got Greens at the front of it, but you actually have their deputy leaders a fucking jihadi. So they are. I don't understand why people are surprised by that. That is not representative of the entire UK population at all. What was very interesting was the 24% reform vote. Okay, so now we're up to where we are with the war. And do I think Trump's doing the right thing? I think he said he was going to do it, and then you've got to fucking follow through. They want us dead. They won't take a peaceful deal. When diplomacy is lost, you have to do something. Sorry, Sammy Carty. You have to do something. Like, this is... if you're in charge of a country, you have to make the difficult decisions. They were slaughtering their own people en masse, right? Who, like... Anyway. Are you seeing those flashes? I don't know what's going on. Okay. Just did it again. So now we're going to kind of roll back a bit. So we've kind of gone from 600 AD right up until where we are today. And we're going to kind of roll back and overlap the timeline a little bit. It's kind of the only way I could kind of figure out how to do it, to kind of weave in Maxwell's, Epstein's, and all of that stuff that's going on. Right. So a little bit of, I'm going to have a bit more water. Okay, I said a bit more. That was a lot of water. Okay, so just Epstein background. If you don't know anything about Epstein, like, hopefully you know some, but if you don't worry. So he was handpicked as a teacher. Oh, let me just get my timeline up. Sorry. So I'd scrolled all the way back for the satellite images. Okay, so Epstein. Born in 1953 to a working class family, no elite background. 1974, 1976, maths teacher at Dalton School, New York City, hired without a degree, early allegations of inappropriate attention to underage girls. So we have Bill Barr's dad was responsible and the head teacher for this school. And he had a history of hiring randomers without qualifications. So it wasn't just Epstein who was hired with no degree. Like, this is something that this guy was doing. We have to remember that Bill Barr was involved heavily in the cover-up of the Franklin scandal. So there's some kind of dodgy stuff. We also have that there was lots of reports back then of Epstein trying to be inappropriate. It was already trying to do things with the teenagers he was in charge of. So I mean, he was a lot younger then, obviously. I think he was early 20s. So then we have he left the school. He left the school and he joins Bear Stearns. So remember, this is a brokerage, trading, insurance type organization, but he's never got a degree, right? He was hired as a maths teacher out of nowhere without a degree, and then he uses his maths teacher to then go and join this organization. He becomes a limited partner. He leaves in advance of insider trading rumors. So he joins this financial institution because he knows numbers. 1981, he starts his own firm called Intercontinental Assets Group, IAG. His focus is on asset recovery, offshore structuring, and tax strategies. So way back in the 80s, he was money laundering, hiding money, hiding taxes, hiding money. So he was insider trading and doing dodgy stuff, and then he sets up his own firm and gets better at it. In the early 1980s, he's introduced to he gets embroiled and introduced to Douglas Leese, who is a British arms dealer, and Adnan Khashoggi. Now, Adnan Khashoggi is the Saudi arms dealer who was directly responsible for moving the weapons from. He was like the middleman, right? The weapons to Iran via Israel. The American government was doing this, like the CIA was doing it behind the scenes under Reagan, right? So this is the Iran-Contra scandal. So at the time, Jeffrey Epstein was having conversations and was hiding and responsible for Khashoggi's money. So Epstein already embroiled and aware of fucking American scandals, right? He didn't just appear in like the 2000s. This is long-standing corruption and involvement in the American underbelly. So throughout the 80s and 90s, he's handling Khashoggi's money and arms, and obviously Douglas Leese's arms trade. So he's like heavily involved in the arms side of things. Not necessarily the one doing it, but he's brokering, hiding money, introducing players, because obviously if you've got the money, you know where things are going, how things are going, right? So he's a fixer already. Builds a reputation, discreet middleman, launderer, and fixer. So then in 1991, okay, but also, sorry, crossover, we have Robert Maxwell is an arms dealer. So just going to jump to Robert Maxwell before we get to 1991 and the supposed first ever meeting at Ghislaine. So Robert Maxwell, born in Czechoslovakia, became the media tycoon, so the Mirror Group, arms dealer, and he was a triple agent, right? He was Mossad, MI6, and Russia, and all of this kind of like, this is like not fringe conspiracy, like that's known. He was like a triple agent. He built his empire Mirror Group with also tech and arms deals. He was selling arms globally, 70s and 80s. So at the same time as Iran-Contra, at the same time as Khashoggi, same time as Dalton Lease. He also, so 1991, that's when he's gone. We also know that so we have Epstein and Eid Mubarak crossovers, right? Because we've got, so Iran-Contra is via Israel, right? And we know that lots of the emails have Jeffrey aligned with Russia, but also Israel. Is he an Israeli spy? Is he also, did he literally just pick up where Robert Maxwell fell down with CIA, MI6, Mossad, and Russia, right? I think he was just selling shit to anybody. I don't think he was aligned with anybody. I think he was just fucking in it for himself. Similarly, Ghislaine. Okay, so 1983, 1985, while Iran-Contra is kind of going on, Eid Barak was the head of Israeli intelligence, and he oversaw the early arms logistics, right? Then he became the Prime Minister of Israel, 1999, 2001, and his supposed first known meetings with Epstein was 2003. But we have Eid Barak will have been linked to Khashoggi, and Epstein's the one who's controlling his money. We don't see all the email, like the emails, we don't see all of it, and email wasn't invented right? So we have to be mindful. Like email wasn't necessarily invented back then, right? We also have to remember that we spoke about last week. Jeffrey Epstein was a member of the Trilateral Commission, 2001. So Keir Starmer was a member later on. We also have so he's spent, but how did he get there? How did he personally get recruited by the Rothschilds? He's already spent 20 years funneling and moving money. And we also have, so this is what I love. I really, really rate Julian. If you're not watching Julian Dory's podcast, I also urge you to watch those as well. But especially the ones he has with John Kiriakou, who just throws random bits of information out, right? So John Kiriakou on the latest one was saying that when he was over I'm pretty sure he was doing something somewhere. I'm pretty sure it was about the Middle East. The Rothschild head of the Rothschilds was there with a fake getting in a bank award, and the reason why I was actually there was to kind of put Saddam Hussein back in his fucking box, right? The shit was going down with Saddam Hussein, and he was there to put his to be put back in his box. So this is after Epstein was on the Trilateral Commission, right? So Epstein is way more involved than just randomly rocking up trafficking kids in 2006, right? And so when you think about this far back, you then start to understand the influence that he had, right? Or the circles that he was already involved in. So we have, Eid Barak. So he then became the prime minister, and his first known meetings with Epstein were 2003, supposedly. So this is like while Epstein's at the Trilateral Commission. But he was involved, and he was responsible and oversaw the Iran-Contra arms deals, which is Khashoggi, which is linked to Epstein. Douglas Leese, in case you're wondering, major British arms dealer, 1970s, 1980s, early 80s. He's the one who introduced Epstein to Adnan Khashoggi, and that was Epstein's entry point into high-level arms finance networks. He trained and mentored Epstein in offshore finance and asset recovery. And Epstein learned money laundering techniques used in the Iran-Contra era, right? So going back to Epstein, when he was the maths teacher at Dalton School, he was being trained and groomed just after the math school, right? He was then being trained and groomed for this role, right? That's all he was before, was a fucking maths teacher with no degree. So what really fucking went on when he was at Bear Stearns? Maybe he just saw shit. Maybe he just saw patterns and saw money being moved. I was just like, I'm gonna get in on that. And then who knows? I mean, Epstein's dead. He's not dead. Who knows? Okay. So Douglas Leese introduced Epstein. It introduced Epstein to Khashoggi. He starts moving money. Shell comes assets being hidden. What we also have that people forget a lot, which drives me crackers, right? So it's reported that Epstein didn't know Jean-Luc Brunel. So we also have to remember Jean-Luc Brunel and Epstein. So Epstein invested $1 million into MC2, right? 2004, 2005. But in 1988, there was the CBS 60 Minutes episode. And I've watched it. I urge you to watch it. Because I watched it and I was like, wait a minute, they just said Khashoggi's name. Like randomly. 1988. It's called American Girls in Paris. And it's talking about the abuse and elite client networks and how models are being trafficked alongside and are, you know, as the prizes during arms deals. And there's like a 1 to 2 minute segment where the girls are saying that they're getting trafficked Khashoggi. There's Khashoggi on his yacht with the girls. So this is what Jean-Luc Brunel was doing. And the mainstream narrative is that it was Ghislaine who introduced Epstein to Khashoggi in the early 2000s. You're telling me that Epstein, already with a fucking predilection for young teenagers, was handling Khashoggi's money and he didn't know anything about these fucking girls, that he's handling the money? Just because it wasn't formalized until then, nobody's going to be able to convince me that he didn't know of the trafficking. Maybe he just hadn't found his inroads yet, but he knew it was. He would have known it was going on because he was handling Khashoggi's money, and Khashoggi's named in this 1988 60-minute interview, and it was well known that he would have parties on his fucking yachts, and there would be girls there, and not all of them, you know, of age. Like this is not something that just randomly happened, like just now. So I mean, Khashoggi dies in 2017 in London. He was old by then. He was born in 1935 in Saudi Arabia. But okay. So now we're going to pick up with so Robert Maxwell. So Robert Maxwell, also an arms dealer. So we've got 3 arms dealers tied to Epstein in the 80s, right? They know each other. They know each other. So we have the lie, right? This is the mainstream narrative that Ghislaine reaches out to Epstein after her father's death. Why would she reach out to him if she didn't know who he was? Why would you reach out to some random financier, arms dealer, who was a money launderer for arms dealing, and very good at hiding money and very good at finding money that's gone missing? Why would you reach out to him specifically when your daddy's lost 450 million and then all of a sudden Jeffrey Epstein has lots of 450 millions? So but obviously the story is that, you know, she's devastated. I mean, I personally believe that she fucking offed her own dad and decided she wanted the empire, right? So if you've never looked into the, I mean, he was a psychopath, sociopath, right? And used to brutalize his children. And if you grow up in a household where you're being brutalized psychologically, physically, whatever's going on, your children grow up without empathy. We've done this, right? We've done this. We've understood what happens with regards to human development. She was created. And if you listen to the victims, like Ghislaine was sadistic. She was evil. That's what they say to her. Like, Jeffrey was a fucking perverted weirdo, but she was fucking sadistic and evil. You can't convince me that so shit was getting hot with her dad. You know, her world, she was a socialite, she was attached to the royals, she was living the high life. She was about to see the Maxwell empire crumble, and she would have been ruined. I firmly believe she's the one who ended her dad and took over the empire. And she had help hiding the money and reclaiming the money. But she also knew, Jean-Luc Brunel, remember that the mainstream narrative is that she introduced Epstein to Brunel. Which means she already knew that he was fucking trafficking kids and humans and girls. So maybe that was the pull. Maybe that was the way that she managed to, you know, Epstein would be thinking, what's in it for me? Right? Until this point, he was in the circles, but not part of it. Right? So Ghislaine came with those connections that he'd never had. Right? So it was a mutually beneficial relationship. She got rid of her dad, allegedly, so that she could take over the empire. But her dad was already fucking trafficking guns, arms dealing. She was building intelligence-based tools on the back end, right? So we have the email, the Promise technology that was Bill Gates, right? So Bill Gates as well, everybody's, you know, tying him into like the, oh, you know, the Russian STDs. And he's like, fucking dad was a eugenicist. He's a eugenicist, right? And his dad was involved in the Spanish flu creation, but everybody forgets that, right? Everybody forgets that they tried before, right? Oh, there's no water in there. 2 seconds, let me get some more water. So she was like tied in with Bill Gates way back in the early 2000s, because Bill Gates' partner was trying to get in Ghislaine's knickers, and this was all reported in the media back then, right? This isn't new news. Everybody like pretends, and Bill Gates will say that he didn't meet her until 2011, but it was reported back in 2001, the same time Jeffrey's now Trilateral Commission, right? So this is a really fucking pivotal period back then. This is 10 years after the death of her dad, where they've been building this empire, like carving out a new empire based on the back of her dad's empire. But also the other arms dealers that Jeffrey already knows. So one of the other things that's really interesting that John Kiriakou said was that the Bilderberg meetings, like all of those were about arms dealing. Like because it's the perpetual war machine, right? This is how they make the money. This is what we saw in the fucking Bolshevik Revolution. They funded both sides. This is what we see in World War I, World War II. They fund both sides. So they got to work out like which war are we starting to earn some fucking money? And Jeffrey Epstein was facilitating that. So do I think he's a spy? I think the more I look into his involvement with multiple countries and multifaceted layers of what was going on, I just think he was out for himself. And I don't think he He has a god complex. Right, had a god complex. I don't know, has. He was involved in CRISPR DNA manipulation. He was involved in creating breeding programs, same as Nygod, right? Like that type of person doesn't bode well with being told what to do in any way, shape, or form. And with regards to no allegiance except yourself. So I don't think he wouldn't make a very good spy, which is a patriotic type spy doing everything for, king and country or God and country. I think he was just fucking out for himself. 100%. So his ties. Oh, there we go. Right. Let me just go to. So then what we have when we roll up to so he's already heavily involved in all of this stuff, right? So he was knocking around and part of the Iran Contra stuff. Then we have, oh shoot, what's been going on in the UK at the minute with like Andrew and Mandelson. Okay. So again, so where we get into the 2000s, 2010s is it's not a new role. Like he's been doing it since the 80s, but he's been groomed into this role since the 80s and taken under the Rothschilds wing. And that's literally in one of the emails. I'm working on behalf of the Rothschilds, right? Which potentially all came about during the Iran Contra stuff. That's probably, I would say, is probably where paths crossed because of where he came from. Like it's not like he wasn't born with a silver spoon in his mouth or up his arse, right? So with Prince Andrew, remember we've got confidential trade secrets. While ex Prince Andrew, so Randy Andy was the special representative for international trade and investment 2001 2011 2001. That's that crossover period when Epstein was trilateral, already well in bed with Ghislaine and Andrew were having relations while Robert Maxwell was alive, if I've got my timelines correct. I'm sure it was early what was it, early 2000s? I don't know. She's the one who introduced Epstein to Andrew. He and her had already had a little thingy. Maybe it was after the death. I can't remember when. But so everybody knew who she was, right? Because she grew up as a socialite. So the Camerons knew her. Boris Johnson knew her. Boris Johnson's sister came out and said, you need to feel sorry for her. She's not a bad person, right? So they've all been running cover from her because they've known her. They've known her since she was young, right? So she's been in that world. So he was obviously giving we kind of covered this last week, but just to rehash how it all fits in with Epstein being a fixer and linked to Iran, China, Israel, like all of those things going on, and Russia behind the scenes, right? So then he would, what was he doing? Like Andrew should be fucking tried with treason. So Mandelson, fuck misconduct in a public office. They should be tried with treason. I did read something that they're thinking about. They're thinking about under the national security. What's the security one? I'm sure it's a National Secrets, the Secrets Act, Official Secrets Act. It's doing for treason. It should be done for treason. Knowingly, willingly working against the United Kingdom. So we have Andrew and Mandelson giving Epstein trade secrets, financial-based trade secrets, of which JP Morgan Stanley profited a lot. JP Morgan Stanley linked to the Rothschilds. Epstein benefited, Les Wexner benefited, and obviously Wexner gave Epstein power of attorney. So everybody's wondering, like, why did Wexner give Epstein power of attorney? Well, actually, he was financially benefited from the secrets Andrew and Mandelson gave. Right, this is what I asked. I asked Grok, who benefited? Can you see where people's wealth went up at around this time? Epstein managed Black's money and advised Apollo market-sensitive information during the 2008-2010 crisis. We had Epstein gave early warning on UK-EU trade deals, tax policy, or financial crisis plays would have been gold for Les Wexner brands, international expansion, and stock trades. So he's not going to come out. If you've seen that Wexner deposition, do you know what I reckon you could do, which would be fun? Is you could train Grok in things like scan and statement analysis and run little bits of information through. And then Grok's very good at detecting anomalies, because that's what I was doing and wanted to kind of talk about because of Ian Huntley on today's show. Maybe I'll kind of whistle top store and tell you what prompt I gave. Yeah, let's do that as an extra one. Okay, because this isn't going to be 3 hours. It's only going to be 2 hours talking about this stuff. Because we've spoke a lot about the Persian rise stuff already a lot before. So I literally asked him, okay, so I want you to track, use the emails, cross-reference the emails, cross-reference jumps in finances to known Epstein associates, specifically with the Mandelson and Andrew kind of insider deals and trading, right? And so it was him. With these two people benefited, and obviously Epstein, right? Mandelson benefited because he got 3 payments of 25 grand. So he got a shitty deal. Andrew, there were potential £1 million deals. So it's really interesting how Epstein was getting like tens of millions, hundreds of millions. It just shows you how retarded Sarah Ferguson is. Retarded Andrew was, retarded Mandelson was, because they handed over trade secrets which enriched to the tens of millions, hundreds of millions other people, and they got like 25 grand, like 3 payments of 25 grand. Like, how pathetic. Like legit pathetic. If you are going to sell out your fucking country, like I would be after, I mean, I wouldn't, but I'd be like, yeah, give me $1 billion. Right, the money, what you're going to be able to do with this information is easily worth more than 25 grand. Like, it absolutely, it's insane. Like, it just, the desperation and retardedness of Mandelson, Andrew, and Ferguson. Okay, that's what nobody's talking about, right? What we got here? So there's no, uh so we've got Wexner yeah. Yeah, so Black paid Epstein 158 to 170 million 2012 to 2017 for tax and estate advice, art leveraging, and personal fixes, so mistress payouts, IRS audits, Apollo's post-crisis deals, distressed debt, private equity boomed, but no proof ties to Mandelson links. But you see money goes up, right? It's good. Remember, we don't see everything. Um, he boosted his 600 million pound fortune off the back of it. Um, and remember, those are the only bits of information we have. Andrew and Epstein were friends before that. And Mandelson was fucking corrupt as shit, like way back in the early 2000s. And if you're a spy, you don't get to keep your money. Yeah, so Andrew was supposed to get 1 million advance and 40% of future profits, but they don't know whether it came off or not. I would say it probably didn't come off because he was still fucking hounding him for money. Um, but why do I think it was treason, right? So the Mandelson for treason, well, I mean, Prince Andrew 100%, right? But Mandelson, because of the state-owned RBS that they sold out to JP Morgan, like, literally, that's taxpayer like, we fucking bailed it out and it was fucking sold like, it's just dodgy as fuck. So bad. Um, and then if you hadn't heard, there's a whole fucking mortgage scandal going on, with Baghdadi with a family from Baghdad has spent 20 years building up fake portfolios of mortgages, and so now there's, like, 600 millions worth of fucking mortgage loans that he's got no fucking, properties. So that's all going on, with regards to bank collapse, right? So it was mortgages that fucks up the financial crash last time, right? So is that what we're having? Is that what they're gonna do? They're gonna crash the economy, like, fast again? That's what they always fucking do. Always fucking do. Okay, so with regards to, Iran, bet you didn't realize Epstein was involved. Way back when, right? So, I mean, not necessarily, I mean, he was, like, fucking handling the money for Khashoggi, he was handling the fucking Iran-Contra deal, and this is where we are, right now. Um, Culmination of 1,400 years worth of history, and it's tied into the Epstein shit, if you actually paying attention. Do I think we need to be worried and concerned? I think we need to be a little bit more mindful because the jihadis are already trying to kill us. And appeasing them, which is what fucking dickhead Starmer's trying to do, isn't gonna help anyone in any way, shape, or form, right? So we do have the Middle East actually trying to stabilize itself, and they have been doing that since 2024. I reckon after Iran's gone down, that's when, like, it's that thing, like, it's saving Israel for last. Enemy of my enemy is my enemy. You have to get rid of your enemies first, and then you get rid of your, like, you keep your, what is it, enemies closest? I don't understand why people don't kind of remember these phrases. Um, when they're kind of seeing. So, I mean, which means like Starmer's nothing, right? If Trump is latched on to fucking Bibi, like he's the biggest threat, right, to the West, right? Trump's not stupid. He's not stupid. And the fact that Starmer doesn't even get a fucking look in, neither does Macron, and he thinks they're all fucking idiots. Like, imagine being that pathetic. It's sad for the UK, like, to have fallen so far in a really short amount of time, considering where we were. But, all empires have to fall. Maybe we'll get an opportunity to just live peacefully after this. I mean, who knows? They will be raising our threat level. If they don't, they need to. They need to, right? We're already at substantial. There are fucking jihadis on the streets waging war in Edinburgh. And there's probably more since I looked this afternoon, right? We do not have, because they've been systematically destroying the police force, and, you know, DI hiring everybody. So we have Muslims running the civil service, running the police. Something that happened in Telford only in the last couple of weeks, bearing in mind for those of you outside of the UK. Actually, you've probably heard of Telford recently, thanks to Elon. So what's been going on in Telford is there was men in cars approaching 14-year-old girls, and they reported it to the police. And what did the police do? They did nothing. It's Telford police all over again, doing nothing, which is why I've got those fucking FOIs. And I haven't heard anything yet, by the way. Still, but I mean, but we've not hit the threshold, right? But this is why I've got those FOIs and why I'm launching this fucking Telford group. Like the American version is a class action, right? That's why I'm trying to get the information to launch local lawsuits against local infrastructure, because there's no point doing it against the national stuff. Nobody cares. They don't care. They're not involved. They're just going to do it anyway. But that literally happened in the last couple of weeks. But I saw it today. But I'm sure it happened. So local girl, 14-year-old girls being approached by the exact same fucking individuals who should have been rolled up in 2010 for grooming, raping, and abusing, and torturing, and murdering children in Telford. And the police aren't interested. But they would be interested if I tweeted something mean, right? Oh, they're not interested because I tweet mean shit all the time. I just plead not guilty. Right, prove. Where's the victim? Right? Okay, so what we actually see, right? So when we kind of put it all together, is what we actually see is a weakening of Iran, China, and Russia. And it's not in isolation what's going on in Iran at all. We also have to remember China did nothing after Trump blew up the nuclear sites in Iran. Iran did nothing after Trump assassinated like key players. Iran did nothing. China did nothing when they stole Maduro. So for all the posturing, I don't. I have hope, and I don't see all out war, because it would have already kicked off Like, I don't like, there's been ample opportunity for it to happen, and with the stabilization, and with, the Abraham Accords, and with, um, Middle East turning away from the jihadis and towards, I say the West, towards America and the peace board, right? And the UN about to go fucking bankrupt, like the UN about to go bankrupt. The peace board is replacing fucking Davos's board that they were building, right? Davos was supposed to be the one that was kind of coming up, and the WEF and the WHO and all of them. And the WHO's been diminished with regards to their Chinese-based stronghold. The UN, which is China's stronghold, right? Because they just fucking swooped in and took it because it was America, and America's no longer playing the game, right? But we do have to be mindful. Like in 3 years, Trump's not in office. So we have to work fucking hard around the globe to make sure that we don't just end up flip-flopping back to where we were. Which is what I don't think people are taking serious enough, and that's the thing that kind of concerns me, is I don't think people are kind of taking it serious enough. And for some reason, they think it's all just magically fixed. We've got another 20 years at least, right? Because these corrupt individuals are in every single institution. They are in our schools, they are in our hospitals, they are our lawyers, they are our policymakers, they are the counselors, they are the social fucking service people, they are in the local government, they're in the national government. So in 2020, the NCA said they believed there was around 200,000 pedophiles. They've just revised that number upwards to just under a fucking million. That is horrific. And remember, the NCA were watching all these fucking arms deals go down over Signal, right? And EncroChat. And the NCA were having conversations about Epstein and dodgy fucking links into Andrew, the royals, all of those things. I keep saying, like, the NCA, they're fucking the good guys. They are doing shit. And also, let's not forget that actually Suella Braverman did a good thing while she was in office and decoupled the CPS from so Tony Blair took it under Parliament, and she decoupled it again. This is the only reason we are seeing fucking the prosecution of Andrew and Mandelson. And more Labour MPs and Labour fucking people are having to step down. More and more and more. Oh, and if you didn't see, fucking Jess Phillips, besties with a bloody jihadi. Like, they're all about to find out the only reason they've got, like, they are MPs is because they just fucking Muslim blocked. And they ain't. The actual British people have not been late. I mean, the non-retarded British people have not been Labour voters for a very long time because they got fucked over by Blair. They're not stupid, right? They were angry with Maggie up north, and Blair made it worse for them. They're not stupid. They're not idiots. So I feel positive. I think we have to, because there's no, I mean, you can't do anything about it. You might as well feel good. Feel good. I think it's quite useful that we have X, because I woke up 1, 2, 3, 3 days ago. We're like day 2, day 3. Within 9 minutes of Trump announcing what had happened, I got to see it from the horse's mouth, right? Literally on X. So I found out like 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning. I was just like, oh. So I'm very grateful for X, and actually being able to find information out. And that's obviously why our government doesn't want it and doesn't want Telegram. But there we are. So I hope you've enjoyed this fucking whistle-stop tour of Iran, and Betty, I hope you enjoyed the whole Epstein, Khashoggi, Iran, Contra. It's just fucking. It's so. The corrupt elite are so interwoven in all of the shitstorms. I don't understand why I'm surprised every time. I just don't. Okay, and now we do have Gibraltar shit popping off. So Gibraltar is British territory, right? That has been voted on like multiple times. Gibraltar's British. It's not letting me. There we go. And what we have is Starmer now fucking giving Gibraltar away. So there's a draft treaty just before we go into how you can, like, a prompt for Grok, which I think is really cool, which will help you kind of do some proper investigations with the Huntley stuff that's circulating, that he was innocent. I don't think he was, by the way. I forgot what I was going to say. So we'll get onto that next, because I like being here for 3 hours. Okay, so just Gibraltar as a little sidestep. So the draft treaty was published on the 26th of February. So last week is aimed at addressing Gibraltar's unique position, right? So they are. The treaty, formally titled the Draft UK-EU Agreement, right? So remember, Starmer's fucking pulling us back into the EU. He's tying us in. He's now aligned us with the fucking net zero shit. He's pulling us back into those SDGs, fucking like fast, selling everything off, destroying the UK, making us as weak as fucking possible. So they want to create a fluid border between Gibraltar and Spain. There is no need for this, and there is no right to Spain to have this. Right? This is what's wrong here, like the Chagos Islands. So Gibraltar's airport, so they are now allowing Spanish officials to be involved in checking parts. So they've just given Spain the authority to police inside Gibraltar, inside the ports and borders. So now, which will allow them to have direct flights, right? So everybody says that Brexit was bad. The EU did everything to stop the UK being prosperous. So up until this point, Gibraltar, there's been no direct flights to Gibraltar from EU. They literally fucking cut them off. So goods and people, but also remember, they just fucking cut off any trade into the United Kingdom as well. So the text states it doesn't affect sovereignty in any way and preserves UK control over military facilities such as the naval base. However, we've just fucking seen what they do. So it's not being legally reviewed yet. It's over 1,000 pages covering like areas such as dynamic alignment with EU law. So Gibraltar now has to update its regulations to match EU standards, right? So it's just pulled Gibraltar into the EU like properly, or will do. Now, 96% voted to where we go. In 1967, 99% of Gibraltarians voted to remain British. And in 2002, they overwhelmingly rejected shared sovereignty with Spain. Right, so this is like the Greenland for the Greenlandians, Chagos for the Chagosians, except we're not going to allow them to do that. Gibraltar for the Gibraltarians, except we're not going to allow them to do that. Falklands for the Falklanders, but we're not allowing them to do that because you're not allowed to decide to be part of the British Empire still, right? Gibraltar did vote remain in the referendum because of the really interlinked ties, but they also voted to be part of Britain, right? They do not want to be part of Spain. So EU fucking said, fuck you. We are gonna make it impossible for you to fucking exist, and we will just fucking starve you out, right? This is what we got. Sieges. We are being sieged by the EU, financially sieged. So since 2020, they've had negotiations that have been going on. And all of a sudden, Starmer's been pulling us back into EU, and now we have this draft EU treaty, which is giving unprecedented powers to Spain and EU. So Spanish border guards at the airport control entry for Britons traveling to Gibraltar requiring passports, and the EU nationals enter freely. So we are not going to be able to enter our own fucking land, like owned space, right? It might not be attached to the UK, but they are British. You know, if a fucking Pakistani can come over here, give birth, and that's a British citizen, we can keep British citizens who voted to be British, who've been part of our empire for a while. They have to adopt EU laws around products, VAT. They do not have a vote. It was shared in Parliament, but it didn't even go to fucking Parliamentary Scrutiny Committee. It was just shared and fucking pushed, right? There we go. Spray, it favors the EU, and they are the fucking dregs of the cabal. If there are disputes, there is arbitration, but EU will override UK operations, especially if Spain objects, right? So Spain is part of the EU. The EU will side with Spain. They've just fucking strangleholded Gibraltar until Gibraltar's now agreeing to these soft borders. It's just disgusting. Spain will just fucking try and take it again. Which, like, so, like, how is this any different, right? How is this different? So we are not allowed to keep the people, we're not allowed to keep the nations that want to be part of Britain, right? But other countries are allowed to fucking lay claim against those countries' wishes. Why is Spain allowed to expand their empire? Like, why are people allowed to fucking encroach? Like, I don't at what point do we say, "Europe, fucking stop or we'll nuke you." Right? I'm not gonna really nuke Europe, but we should, fuck's sake. We are being destroyed. Why? And I go back to this, why are we being destroyed? Because we keep telling them to fuck off. Right? You will not do this. Our laws supersede your laws, and you're not fucking doing this. And we keep taking our own government to court. This is the point of the fucking judicial review in the Human Rights Act, which every political party wants to get rid of. Even Restore Britain. Restore Britain wants to make it harder for people to use judicial review process. Judicial review is explicitly tied into the Human Rights Act. You get rid of the Human Rights Act. And Restore hasn't said that what they're gonna do to kind of fix shit. Do we need the Human Rights Act? I mean, we did have, trial by jury. We had all of that constitutionally anyway. We had all that, precedents already. But it's the thing that saved us for the last 5 years of cabal rule. And we never had those freedoms before. We never had the opportunity to in court, before you've been arrested, challenge what the government is doing, right? We never had to just wait until we always used to have to just wait until an election. Right? There was no way you could challenge the government in court like you can with you. And yes, fucking places like a Good Law Project, who just fucking they literally take money from taxpayers to do fake lawsuits and lose. Like they win like 2% of their cases. Like they purposely do shit cases. And if you ever read their cases, they will never win, right? So yes, that whole pocket fucking industry has popped up, and they're the ones filing lots of stuff. But Restore Britain, the entire policy is around going back to when the only thing the people were allowed to do to get rid of corrupt MPs was to vote them out at a general election. That's it. If Restore Britain was really interested in giving people power, they would be pushing for full recall, and they're not at all. They would be pushing for getting out of the Paris Agreement, and they're not. But that's because fucking Rupert Lowe is the second major shareholder of an energy company getting loads of fucking money. But he's old money. He's tied into the SDGs. You just didn't fucking see it. Okay, so we're just getting fucking hemorrhaged, because the weaker we are as a nation, the less thorn we are in the side of the fucking EU. So somebody I know sent me a couple of things from the early 2000s. So around the Huntley, the girls went missing. So for those of you who kind of don't know the story, there was 2 girls. Let's go. Okay, so double homicide of Holly Wells and Jessica Chapman. What I got Grok to do, so they sent me like 2 kind of blog pages, which was kind of suggesting that actually, so this is from 2002, right? So this is so we've had girls go missing and trafficked for very, very long time, right? This is it may be new to other people, but paedophile rings, girls getting trafficked, like that crops up in Britain every few years, right? This is not they call it like satanic panic. It was going on here too. We had the Hammersmith twins, we had Surrey stuff going on. So we've got all of this stuff. So the two blog posts, just for context, suggests that actually it was the American RAF at the American USAF bases who took the girls, raped, abused the girls. So kind of think Presidio affair, tying that, we have the Temple of Set, we have Michael Aquino, we have lots of dodgy shit going on US Air Force bases and military bases. So this is what this two blog posts were saying. And he was kind of going into, Ian Huntley's innocent. And what I got Grok to do is, first I told Grok to completely forget mainstream narrative. And I didn't, I'm going to put it, let me just put, this is the prompt that I put in. Popped it in the chat, right? So I'm getting better understanding how to get AI to be helpful. Like I really enjoy it when you kind of tell Grok, I want you to pretend to be an evil overlord who's hell bent on depopulation, right? If you want to understand nuances and perhaps predict stuff, that's a really kind of good prompt. And it will do it hypothetically. 100%. And I was like, okay, well, maybe I can use this concept to actually dig into something with no bias. That's what we need. We need no bias, and you have to be really careful. So I always kind of tell Grok, ignore Wikipedia. I need you to use Encyclopedia Britannica for historical context, right? So while it does tend to have more historical rigor and align with previous versions of Britannica, right? So it's not perfect. And you also now have Grokpedia that you can use if you want to. Okay, but so I was trying to figure out, well, what do I know? What intelligence, because I'm not intelligence. I've never been trained in intelligence at all whatsoever. So I can see patterns of behavior and quite often separate emotion from what's going on and try and understand the human element of why somebody might be doing what they're doing. And this kind of led me into investigative methodologies, because they're actually really kind of heavily linked and aligned with regards with psychological methodology. So what do I mean by that? In order for me to understand whether my client's bullshitting me, I have to be able to understand humans. I have to be able to understand language, how normal language is formed, how and so body language is like 50-50, right? You can flip a coin. Even with the most expertly analyzed, trained AIs, paying attention to micro expressions, it's like 60, I think it was like 50, wasn't it 56% accurate, right? So body language is like a toss of a coin, right? Because if you're cold, you're gonna cross your fucking arms. So just be careful. That fucking eye thing, it's like 52%, right? Flip a coin whether somebody's looking left or right. But because language is better understanding language structure, sentence structure. This is where the whole like Freudian slip concept comes from. So I was trying to think of all of the different methodologies I know that can be used well to dissect something. This is the first time I've kind of used this prompt, and I'm definitely going to be using it, probably refine it. But basically, I told Grok, and Grok is Grok is the best AI out there for like in-depth research, like unbiased in-depth research. Now it is biased. You have to clear him at that, right? But compared to the other AIs, it's not like I love ChatGPT for kind of like random convos. I love Claude for sales and marketing and all those types of things. So each AI kind of has its unique strategy. Grok is by far the best for research and in-depth analysis if you're ever going to kind of like play with an AI. Okay, so I want you to forget mainstream narrative. Really important. Assess a known case with a completely open eyes as though it's in the midst of the investigation. Please act as a highly trained forensic detective versed in scan and other statement analysis, body language, and lie detection techniques. So I've thrown that in there as well, as because you can kind of look at all of it together, as well as a highly trained in OSINT and other intelligence crafts, right? Because I don't know the names of them all. You can tell Grok, right? I want you to be trained in like intelligence. You are a high level intelligent asset embedded in like MI5. Like fucking do it. Like I'm gonna test them all. I know I will. For yeah. So, but this is my test case. Let me know when you're ready. So Grok came back with, I've cleared my mind of all perceived conclusions, official summaries, media framing, court transcripts labeled final, and every layer of the mainstream narrative. I'm now operating strictly as a cold case forensic detective who's just been handed the file on an active unresolved investigation. My toolkit is SCAN, so scientific context analysis, and that is Peter Hyatt, may he rest in peace, who I kind of learnt about this from. This is used by Mossad and intelligence agencies. So scan scientific and it very highly accurate when used alongside others. So when you kind of use one of these in isolation, you miss things. But when you use multiple ones, you can kind of roll it all together. So every word, every omission, every change in tense, every unnecessary detail, every pronoun shift, every lack of conviction marker will be dissected in real time. Statement analysis extensions, so criterion-based content analysis. And when you have scan and statement analysis together, it's like 79% accurate. Reality monitoring, linguistic deception cues, so passive voice clusters, temporal lacune, hedging, over editing, non-verbal or behavioral baseline. If video, photos, or body cam footage is available, will flag micro expressions, illustrator versus manipulators, gaze aversion patterns, baseline deviations, and stress leaks. So Adam Apple jump, shoulder shrugs, foot direction, etc. Now, when it comes to non-verbal and behavioral, you have to make sure you've got good baseline, and you're very unlikely to get that. So you have, what I mean by baseline, you have to have something to compare it to. So you have to know how somebody is in a very kind of normal, a non-stressed, non-heightened aware situation, and then you kind of compare it to, right? This is why statement analysis is better, because we're all taught to structure sentences in the exact same way, and deviation from that will happen under stress while you're trying to think things through. While you've got increased cognitive load, it's very difficult to come up with sentences and phrases and words structured in a normal fashion. Your brain will start to struggle as you're trying to get as far away from the crime as possible. You create distance, right? This is key. You create distance between the question you've been asked. This is by politicians, like they're fucking never, they never answer the question. They create distance between the question that's asked, and they redirect and misdirect and then fucking answer a different question. So you instantly know they're fucking lying. So with body language and micro expressions, you have to know how somebody is under like natural conditions and feeling good, to have something to compare it to. With language, you don't have to do that because we're all taught to structure language in the exact same way. Some people have have like hand gestures. Some people don't have hand gestures. Some people may so I close my eyes a lot when I'm thinking, right? Because it enables me to actually think through what's going on, right? So this is something people with autism do. They close their eyes because they're trying to like ascertain the information and allow their brain to think it through without becoming overstimulated. But somebody else, they may just blink a lot. You know, you got people saying, oh, they're blinking a lot because they're under stress. Well, what if you just happen to have like dry eyes? Like some people do have dry eyes. But if you've never investigated that and you don't understand that, you're going to automatically assume and assign this label to them based on inaccurate understanding of that person's medical. I don't need to know somebody's medical condition. I do not need to know somebody's baseline behaviors. I just need to know how they're structuring sentences, right? This is why it is superior. So also going to investigate OSINT and intelligence trade graphs, so geolocation cross-checks, timeline reconstruction via open source timestamps, financial trails, phone record patterns, social media metadata, vehicle ANPR equivalents, associate mapping, and anomaly detection against expected human behavior. Forensic mindset, evidence first, narrative never. Every claim is treated as potentially deceptive until it survives multiple independent vectors of verification. I assume nothing is accidental, everything is data. Protocol. I will follow once you feed me the case. So this is all of Grok's framing. I gave him that teeny tiny little like, I'm kind of guessing. This is like what I'd like you to do. And he kind of came back like raw. So protocol, raw intent. I will list every piece of information you provide exactly as given without glossing or sanitizing. Chronological reconstruction. I'm going to build a master timeline with every known event, statement, and artifact pinned to source and reliability score. Statement by statement scan. I will quote verbatim, highlight deceptive indicators in bold, and explain the linguistic forensics, behavioral video analysis if supply, frame by frame flags with timestamps. OSINT deep dive. I will request or pull any public open source data that can corroborate or contradict photos, documents, flight records, property deeds, etc. Anomaly matrix, what's missing that should be there. And I never thought about this. Like I never thought about asking what's supposed to be there, right? Because I'm not a trained detective. Who's not talking, what timeline gaps exist, what financial or digital footprints are absent. And I'm definitely going to be using this on some of the Epstein video, potentially. You definitely want to be using this on the Les Wexner deposition. So one of the Les Wexner deposition clips that's going out is where he's saying that he was hoodwinked. Jeffrey Epstein's a con man. Like that's 100% what he believes. Con man, he's a con man. Was he conning him out of his money? Is not necessarily it, right? Do I think he kind of blackmailed him into a fucking corner? Probably. But he firmly believes he's a con man by the way he was structuring the sentence. So I will map at least 3 or 4 plausible explanations, including the official one, and pressure test each against the evidence. Confidence ladder and red flag summary, ranked findings with explicit confidence percentages, what additional data would move the needle, edge case and implication briefing. What if X is true? What does that mean for Y and Z? Legal, practical, investigative next steps. And this was really helpful because Grok kind of said, right, we need to go, you need to find this information. If you can find this, plug this in. If you can find this, plug this in. I do not care about political correctness, institutional reputation, or how this will look. I care only about what the data actually says when stripped bare. I'm locked in and standing by. Give me the case, name or file number, the core facts, you know them, any key statements, transcript, 911 calls, we're in the UK, interviews, affidavits. I have to keep reminding him I'm in the UK and I'm in Telford. Video links, photos, timelines, documents, whatever you have. The moment you drop the first packet, the investigation begins. No filters, no scared cows, sorry. Your move, boss. What's the case? So what I did was I saved those 2 pages, blog pages, as PDFs, and then I just fed the PDFs in. And so these two PDFs are suggesting Ian Huntley's innocent, and it was RAF, sorry, not RAF, it's American Air Force members. So the investigation files opened. The core allegation, so Huntley is a school teacher and Carr was a teaching assistant, were arrested 17th of August despite absolutely no hard evidence. This is what the blog post is saying. Arrest and subsequent handling designed to divert scrutiny from USAF, Lakenheath and Middenhall bases where bodies were found near the perimeter fence. Political motive claimed protect Blair and Bush and the special relationship and the upcoming Iraq operations. The base has about 10,000 US personnel. So this is like 2001, 2002, right? Behavioral claim, 2002. I'm sure, yeah. Procedural claims, Huntley was sanctioned under the Mental Health Act to Rumpton on the 20th of August for psychiatric evaluation. Alleged isolation, suicide watch, brought lights 24/7, knee-length blue smock, no underwear, no watch, window time cues, appearance changed dramatically with 3 weeks, weight loss. Additional charge, conspiracy to pervert course of justice, added via expedited Crown Court appearance, right? So they literally rolled him up fast and psych-evaled him, and they tried to roll him up under the Mental Health Act. DC Brian Stevens, who the family liaison, read a poem at a memorial, which is really random, and an unmanned officer was arrested on the 12th of September on child pornography offences, Operation Ore and Candyman. Suspiciously timed after Huntley's 10th of September court refusal to plead guilty. So 2 days after he refused to plead guilty, the unnamed officer was arrested on child pornography offences. So this guy's claiming it was a cover-up, and Huntley was a patsy. Saying US servicemen, history of overseas sexual violence, talking about Rongi, Kosovo, Okinawa, and Fort Bragg, wives and murderers linked to anti-malarial PTSD, bodies moved from inside the base, dumped near known family link, old residents, to frame local civilian gamekeeper, found them after small smell noted days earlier. Supporting details. Bodies were severely decomposed and partially skeletonized, almost certainly not killed where discovered. No direct forensic link to Huntley or Carr at the time of writing. Calls for release of Huntley, Carr, and Bryant and Guantanamo detainees, right? So here's the chronological reconstruction. August 2002. 11:45 to 18:30, girls last seen leaving Holly's barbecue in Red House Gardens, Soho. CCTV at Ross Piers Sports Centre. 18:28, they were buying sweets. Walked past Huntley's college close house. Carr documented in Grimsby was 1,000 miles away, so she gave a false alibi. 4th to the 17th of August, massive search. 400 officers, volunteers, USAF personnel from local bases assisted. Huntley gives multiple media interviews claiming he spoke to the girls outside the house and was one of the last to see them alive. 17th of August, bodies were discovered by the gamekeeper, Keith Pryor, in a 5-foot irrigation ditch 600 yards off the road near Peasant Pen, immediately adjacent to RAF Lakenheath perimeter in Suffolk. 10 to 16 miles east of Soham. Smell was noted days earlier. 17th of August, the early hours, Huntley and Carr were arrested on suspicion of abduction and murder. 20th of August, Huntley charged with 2 murders, sectioned under the Mental Health Act on psychiatric recommendation to Rampton Secure Hospital for fitness assessment. Carr was charged with perverting the course of justice due to the false alibi. 10th of September, Huntley appears at Peterborough Court, additional charge of conspiracy to pervert, so alleged lying to police, remanded back to Rampton for 28 days. Report to note gaunt appearance agitation when Carr's name was mentioned. 12th of September, DC Brian Stevens, the Soham family liaison officer, and one other Cambridge officer was arrested on child pornography offences. And Stevens had been 24/7 liaison with the Chapman family and read a poem at the memorial. So there was known dodgy police. police with paedophilic inclinations. So, claim versus fact matrix. What survives independent verification? So this is 100% matches across all sources available. Bodies were found in a ditch immediately adjacent to Lake and Heath perimeter fence. The distance, 10 to 16 miles, is uncontested. Huntley was sanctioned to Rampton 20th of August, uncontested. Court process 10th of September, uncontested. Stevens and the colleague arrested 12th of September. So Stevens was the liaison. So Stephen and the colleague were arrested. Bodies were decomposed, partial skeletonization, and coroner noted almost certainly moved post-death. Huntley pre-arrest TV interviews publicly described as confident and relaxed at the time. US bases at Lake and Heath and Middenhall, large presence, history of documented sexual violence by some US personnel overseas, right? Partially supported, the appearance change in custody was reported by journalists, gaunt, weight loss, spotty, grey streaks, stress, no hard evidence at the moment of arrest. So there really wasn't any hard evidence. It was all circumstantial. Police publicly stated suspicions based on interviews, but full forensics such as ties, fibers, phone records, etc., were not disclosed until later. Doesn't mean they maybe didn't have them, but it wasn't publicly disclosed. Speculative or unverified in the two blog posts. Women's smock, no underwear, no window, no watch protocol at Rampton. Huntley family, old resident, half a mile from the dump site. Bodies dumped by insider from inside the base and tipped off. Direct political instruction from Home Office number 10 to frame via the shrinks. Officers' arrests as deliberate decoy, timing fits, but all was already going since May. And Stephen's laptop was predated Soham. Okay, so they already, so the officers were arrested the 12th of September, but it says here that they were already under investigation, and they already they would have had warrants and search and all of that sort of stuff. That doesn't happen in 2 days. So that's potentially coincidence. I mean, coincidence is a dodgy. Why would you? I mean, they wouldn't have known, right? So they I don't know. Okay, so what I got, Grok ran all of this through all of the different statement and like all of the different OSINT based techniques. So first up, he kind of scanned through the so scan, I mean like statement analysis and linguistics. So what should be there and wasn't. So the dump site choice, remote but tied to Huntley family geography, and his known plane spotting interest near USAF base. So Huntley used to hang around there a lot, plane spotting. Rapid sectioning around. So unusual speed for remand prisoner, but documented psychiatrist driven. And isolation protocols are common in high-risk suicides. Stevens' arrest time, so 48 hours after Huntley's court appearance, where he refused to plead guilty, Stevens had intimate family access. So girls walked directly past Huntley's house. He inserted himself into the media. USAF did assist the search again, so they also inserted themselves into the what's the word? Into the investigation. Alternative scenario: local perpetrator with opportunity, girls enter house, homicide inside, bodies transported at night to familiar remote site. So they say Huntley would, so he says, it says Huntley is the primary opportunity with everything that went on with regards to timeline. US serviceman, opportunist, abduction en route, killing inside base perimeter, dump outside, strength, bodies were near the fence, base history, weakness, no witness, no vehicle, no base security, breach reported. So it's no kind of corroborating evidence. Hybrid frame job, police base, pressure diverts via Huntley. Strength, political sensitivities were real. Weakness does require coordinated conspiracy across Cambridgeshire, Home Office psychiatrist. But also remember, we had Madeleine McCann go missing, and we had Blair involved, sorry, Brown involved. We had like mass and countrywide coordination to have cover up what happened over there. So cover-ups happen. So to say that it couldn't happen because it would require a conspiracy, look at all the Epstein files, right? This is what they do if it's going to come back on them. Unrelated third party, just like they said, like low fit. So the three potentials: Huntley, or US serviceman, or hybrid frame job. They all have strengths. However, Huntley comes out as the strongest. Confidence ladder. So body's location, 95%, leading it to Huntley. Psychiatrist remand, 85% factual. Officer arrest and timing, 90% factual, but only 40% chance of being a deliberate decoy. There's only 25% chance of serviceman being a perpetrator because there's no evidence, and then only 20% chance of it being frame via the cover-up job from the information we have. And obviously we haven't like spoken to anyone, we weren't there on the ground. So then he said, okay, here's what you need to do. You need to try and grab transcripts, ground footage, and I'm like, yeah, I can't get all that shit. This is from like 25 years ago. And most of it won't be in the public domain. So first thing I was able to get was a pre-arrest interview of so yes, you can't get the transcripts, by the way. They are, I mean, you have to pay like tens of thousands to get hold of any transcripts. They're not just publicly available. They should be. So I did get the pre-arrest interview of Ian Huntley for Grok to go through. So what we hear is him saying, the girl, right? So I'll read it. The girl, I don't know the girls. I stood on the front doorstep grooming my dog down. She'd run away and come back, a bit of a mess. They just came across and asked how Miss Carr was, and she used to teach them at St. Andrews. And I just said she weren't very good if she hadn't got the job. And they just says, please tell her that we're very sorry, and are off to the W's in the direction of the library over there. Right. So context, voluntary on camera to journalist. Huntley positioned himself as a cooperative witness, a helper, girls, parents and public watching live, no caution, no lawyer present. He'd already given similar accounts to police, media and prior days. There was also an overlay from somebody else kind of giving stuff, so we're just ignoring that. So the statement analysis, the girl, I don't know the girls, right? So we have a pronoun shift, distancing opener. The girl, I don't know the girl. Start singular, possible mental image of one victim, immediate self-correction, classic, lack of commitment and psychological distancing. Innocent witnesses rarely open with, I don't know them when volunteering helpful information. Unnecessary extraneous detail cluster, high deception marker and scan. So dog grooming, dog running away, a bit of a mess. These established I was visibly outside, innocent activity, public alibi, but completely irrelevant to the girl's inquiry, like padding to anchor a fabricated memory. Hesitations, editing markers, multiple and e's, temporal lacuna after sorry, off to the W, so incomplete word. So off they went, question mark, off to the woods, question mark, suggests real-time editing under stress. Lack of conviction, passive language. They just came across, they just says, I just said, no sensory details. So no quotes on tone, no emotions observed in girls, no exact time, compared to high reliability statements rich in I saw, heard, or felt. Inappropriate empathy insertion. Girls say, we're very sorry about Car's job. Huntley volunteers this unprompted. Why would 10-year-old girls express adult level sympathy this way? Possible projection or fabricated dialogue. Direction claim. In the direction of the library. This is testable geography. Library, sports centre direction equals continuing away from the home, so Red House Gardens, but CCTV timeline shows girls had already visited the sports centre, the sweets purchase, then head back towards home, passing Huntley's house again. So if the sighting was genuine and post-shop, direction should be opposite. So they shouldn't be going towards the library. They were coming from the library to Huntley's house. This is a major temporal geography anomaly, even at the time of the statement. So overall structure, short jump straight to self-exculpation. I don't know the girls, no concern for missing children, no offer of further help. Contrast with baseline TV appearance, we don't have any. So reality monitoring score low, few perceptual details, high self-focus, no emotions, consistent with fabricated or rehearsed account. Pre-arrest, his statement and others, he was relaxed, open posture, direct gaze, congruent gestures. Post-Rampton, 10th of September, dissociation, motor agitation, gaze aversion, stress leaks, 3-week custody shift is extreme, even for high stress remand. Now, what Grok didn't catch in that statement analysis, okay, so this is what Peter Hyatt, may he rest in peace, used to teach on his Facebook page. I kind of like came across him. So the girl, right, what that indicates is that he's focused on one and then has to remember there's two. So whether he had a fixation on one, whether he so for whatever reason he was very fixated on one girl, right? The one girl, right? Then he remembers, I don't know, right? The girls come second. I stood in the front doorstep grooming my dog down. She'd run away. So what he's actually saying, the girl ran away. So he had two girls, right? There was two girls, right, who were murdered, but one of them escaped. That's the leakage, and came back a bit of a mess. Not his dog didn't come back of a bit of a mess. One of the girls came back. They just came across and asked how Miss Carr was, and she used to teach them, right? So that's true. Not that they came across, that she was a teaching assistant. But they wouldn't just come across randomly. Potentially, he has used his dog before to insert himself in the to be around the girls, right? She used to teach him at St Andrews, and I just said she weren't very good if she hadn't got the job. And they just says, please tell her that we're very sorry. Like, we're very sorry. That's him. That's him leaking. That's what Hyatt say. That's him leaking. Him and Miss Carr are very sorry. So why would he and Miss Carr be very sorry? Now, at this time, she's miles away. Has Miss Carr groomed these girls so that they're now friendly with the caretaker and Huntley? Remember, he was the caretaker at the school. So have they already been grooming these girls? Is this, Ghislaine Epstein? Is this Fred and Rosemary West? Is this Ian and Moira Hindley? Right? Are they grooming this happened? These fucking man, woman team ups happen a lot more than people think. Off to the W's, like in the direction of the library. So the library over there, like he's creating distance between his house, but he's getting things like muddled up. But that the fact that this is the thing that Grok didn't catch, was the girl ran away, came back a bit of a mess. So I don't know where did the one girl that escaped, run away, go from? Right? How did they disappear? Now, our car was 100 miles away. Their car was 100 miles. Was she really? Did she bring the girl back? Because why would he then mention Miss Carr? He said, Miss Carr, she used to teach them. She said she weren't very good if she hadn't got the job. Was this anger? But he says, we're very sorry. Right? That's him and somebody else, not the girls, because he keeps getting all his tenses mixed up. He keeps getting all of his conversation mixed up. Like, I think from this, people should be relooking at Carr's involvement and not just perjury. Like, what was really fucking going on? So that was that. So I fed in that, and he picked up a few things, and which was good. Then we have I grabbed maps, and we mapped stuff out using Google Maps to kind of like prove. I got the Burchard inquiry PDF. This was an investigation into it was a 196-page official inquiry into Humberside Police, Cambridgeshire Constabulary, plus Soham Village College. It was all about the failures. So examine why. So this is why it leans more to Huntley, right? So the initial blog post was saying that Huntley is not involved, right? So off the back of this, for context, is we had the enhanced DBS procedures, right? Because the school didn't know that he was fucking a sexual deviant already, right? So how did the school hire this caretaker? So this is what we kind of came at afterwards, and why we get the DBS and enhanced DBS checks. So they needed to examine why Huntley's Humberside history, so allegations of 8+ sexual offences under underage girls, 95 to 99, plus one further investigation, did not appear in the Cambridgeshire vetting check for Soham Village College caretaker post. Huntley's Humberside contracts list 11 separate police or social services interactions, predominantly allegations of unlawful sexual intercourse and rape with girls aged under 15. Multiple cases involved girls staying or living with him, admitted sex, boyfriend claims, no convictions, many no further action or withdrawn, records on CIS nominals, CIS crime, child protection database, repeatedly forward, deleted, weeded incorrectly, or never cross-linked, no pattern recognition. So there was like epic failures. So was Huntley at the caretaker, at the school, getting the girls, and are they being fed into the police network, right? So this type of shit, because remember, the police had the 2 police officers were under investigation. So what else was Huntley doing? Was he creating videos, images, circulating these things? I mean, none of this was covered. This is just speculation. But the fact that he was, if you look at what happened with Jimmy Savile and the reports and the repeated reports, and he was just ignored because he was feeding into the elite paedophile rings. So I'm going to propose Huntley was potentially, he isn't fucking Epstein, but not into the same levels, right? So he was perhaps a procurer who fucked up, and now they can't cover for him. So with the fact that he went fast to be declared fucking It was sanctioned and sectioned under the Mental Health Act and shut up. Like, some kind of cover-up was going on there. Some kind of cover-up was going on. So Cambridgeshire only checked the alias, Ian Nixon. They didn't check his real fucking name. They gave the wrong date of birth. There was an undelivered fax to Humberside for local intel. There was zero searchable record on Huntley due to deletions. Soham Recruitment applied late for caretaker. Open references were accepted, even though they were unreliable. Employment gaps weren't fully probed. One undisclosed prior employee started to work before full checks complement. And when we have these male, female, I think you should walk. I mean, you can't walk your car down to a car wash. Your car needs to be driven to a car wash, But so when we have these female and male, so Ghislaine and Epstein, Moira and Ian Huntley, Fred and Rosemary West, the female is the main groomer. The person who kind of befriends the children. This happens a lot. So was she befriending the children? Remember, he says, "We're sorry." He injects Mrs. Carr into the statement, even though she's 100 miles away. Why? Why would you do that unless you're thinking about these girls and Carr's on your mind? Also, when he's in court, at mentions of Carr, he becomes visibly agitated. Like, his behavior change. Like, he's gone from kind of like gormless demeanor to like fucking looking and paying attention and being sharp, right? There is some power dynamic between those two. And she, by the way, is living like the high life, right? She just got off with she's got like a family, she's got children. Like, this is all alleged. This is just me this is us we are taking the evidence based on known patterns between offenders. So I also fed in and found, so I did the timelines. That was useful, kind of using the maps. I also was trying to find the autopsy reports. So Grok had said, if you can find the autopsy reports, that will help. And I was like, can't fucking find those. But I did find a Soham murder HMIC Flanagan report 2004. So full in the public domain, which examined it examined the Met Police external review and the internal review to identify local and national lessons and critical incident response, command resources and prosecution. But it wasn't a reinvestigation of guilt, right? So bearing in mind what we know about the Met and the systematic cover-up of the child rape gangs in London, they're not exactly to be trusted with what so there was the initial response was, there was hundreds of people out. There was dogs, helicopters. Then 24 hours later, bearing in mind the first few days of these were missing persons. So these children were missing persons first, right? It wasn't until later the bodies turned up. They kind of went all at it I'm going to re-say that because my connection got blipped. They went all at it of the nighttime, but by the morning, so not even 24 hours into the missing person case, they just stopped looking. The police stopped looking. It was treated as like just routine missing person, which runaways, that type of thing, right? So first up, there was a full blown out, like, we're going to find these girls, and something happened that they just stopped investigating it. They had the chief constable was on holiday, which, you know, it happens. There was no senior investigation officer role. Everybody was just kind of doing shit by themselves. There was no coordination. It was really clumsy. Arrests happened, like potentially arrests happened, but when it happened, there was no clear evidence linking them, right? So it is still fucking dodgy, but I do believe Huntley and Carr were responsible. So once it kind of got to prosecution, CPS was there, leading counsel. There was expert witnesses, electronic evidence, dedicated business liaison. There was high praise for the family liaison team supporting Chapman and Wells. But remember, the two that were there first were arrested 2 days later for pedophilia, and the one has never been named, the one officer who was arrested. So they had 1,400 officers in the beginning. So the initial response was strong, but then it just petered out and then ended up with successful prosecution, which I think is really fucking weird. They probably got tip-offs and stuff. Probably the public helped them. So then we went through. So I wanted to kind of then go, okay, right, okay. So based on all of the actual evidence that we have, it really does seem like Ian Huntley was quite rightly arrested and charged. But I don't buy the narrative of it as it's been sold. Do I think there is an USAF based Presidio style pedophile ring? In 2016, we had Sergeant Brandon Lakenheath was convicted of aggravated sexual conduct with children under 12, including his own children, had child pornography, possession and viewing, sentenced to 47 years. In 2019, 2024 and 2025, James LeBou from Middenhall, former airman, indicted and sentenced for sexual assault and abusive sexual context, adult victim, same base, 5 years in prison. 2025, Chief Master Sergeant Anthony Green, which was AFSOC, including Middenhall, charged with possession and viewing, producing child pornography, indecent recording, obstruction, removed from command. 2025, and again, individual but not base specific. Broader DoD data, AP investigation 2010 to 2014 across all US bases, 1,584 substantiated sexual abuse cases of military dependents. Enlisted perpetrators most common, family members second, hundreds yearly, pattern of individual or familial abuse, not organised rings at specific UK bases that they've uncovered. But remember, Epstein was landing on British RAF bases, and tens of thousands of children were going missing. And Theresa May had to admit that they'd lost 10,000 children. Children were being taken like into care left, right, and centre during this time. Right, they and the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s was children were just being removed. I had the own familial experience where they were trying to take my brother from my mum because my brother was a fucking nutter and kept ending up in A&E with bruises. Like that, he literally jumped over the fucking you know, the gate you have at the top of the stairs to stop children falling down the stairs. He climbed up it and jumped, like, went over it and, like, shattered himself. And the only reason we didn't all get removed is when the woman, fucking social services person, was there holding my brother. He fucking dived out of her arms and, like, broke a bone, and he ended up in A&E. My mum was like, "See, it's a fucking nut job." But that time, they were just fucking taking children left, right, and centre, and they were going missing. And tens of thousands of children have never been found in the UK. And yes, we do have grooming shit going on as well, but we also have, much like goes on in America, right? But so there's no records as of yet of protected child sex rings 95 to 2005. Epstein files and RAF bases, right? So direct access evidence. So Epstein linked private jets, so Gulfstream, etc., landed at Northolt, London multiple times. RAF Mayhem, Norfolk, which is 30 miles from Lakenheath and Soham. In December 2000, flight log shows passengers en route to Sandringham Royal Estate. Defence Secretary John Healey ordered a full MOD review. It's really interesting. They haven't got anything. Because I did an FOI request in 2024, and they said we don't keep this types of information, so they haven't got anything. And if they were taking it, it definitely isn't there. So yeah, they've asked for the exact same shit that I asked for. All records or emails for Epstein flights, RAF bases for the last 20 years. But exactly what I asked for. 6 police forces assessing trafficking via military sites. Former MP Gordon Brown demanded probe into whether Prince Andrew used taxpayer RF jets. Yeah, he fucking did. So File show Epstein flew in and out of UK, but it was actually being reported. Okay, so here's the thing. It was being reported at the time in the newspapers. So that's how I found out about it. It was being reported 2001, 2002. That Epstein was in the news. I found old newspaper articles. So that's why they would have deleted it really quick. There's not the same security as there is. So files show Epstein flew in and out of commercial and military 60 times. Allegations of women and girls trafficked to private jets, landing at RF facilities, security bypass, no civilian scrutiny. Some logs show young females on flights, evidence destroyed in places, routine 3-month log deletion. Did you, Edwin? So were you... So you were, 89 to 90. So you were there before Huntley. Did you ever hear of, like, I mean, here's the thing. If you're not a paedophile, you're not going to know about it going on because they're not going to tell you. No direct Lakenheath Middenhall link. Marham nearby, Norfolk base. So I was in Lynham. I was in Norfolk in the early 80s. 85, no, 84, 85, 86. Maybe 87. Definitely 87. 89. I'm trying to think when my brother and my sister were born. 5 years in Norfolk, and then we went to Lynham. But obviously I was a child, so I definitely didn't know what was going on. So elite facilitation, Andrew Epstein friendship, Royal Sandringham raised questions of protected access to restricted military airfields. So isolated historic cases. RAF police investigated child sexual offences at former Berlin RAF Gato base, 81 to 89, but it was only one serviceman. Libyan troops at Bassingbourn, Cambridgeshire near Soham, 2014-2015, multiple sex attacks allegations, and the entire unit was sent home. General MOD pattern, 8+ million compensation paid since 2017 for historic child sexual abuse by military personnel on bases, not ring specific, no documented Presidio style organised ring at Lakenheath or Middenhall in public records, right? So we're doing this all public records. So military base, child, victims in daycare setting. Oh, that was Presidio. So, Epstein, high relevance, military abuse patterns, documented individual offenders, common, power, isolation, deployment stress, DOD and AP data, hundreds of dependent child cases yearly across the bases. No ring as yet, we don't know about that. Bases have family housing, schools, daycares, risk vectors exist. UK bases host US personnel and dependents. Dump site was immediately adjacent to Lakenheath perimeter, so 2 miles away from family link. So you could get, I mean, you absolutely could get 2 little kids in a car, and then dump them. But why would you drive to? It's a really strange place to drive to, because you'd think that they were perimeters are secure. So if we talk about late 80s, 90s, this is like when the troubles are happening still, right? So my own experiences of being on RAF bases is going to and from school, sometimes with armed military presence. Would walk us, like we would join and be. It's all right. I didn't put it up on the screen. Sweet. I didn't. So I remember. So we would have to kind of meet, and we would go in groups, and we would be escorted, with men with guns, right, to and from primary school. As a young child, we would, as a force of habit, we would check underneath the cars before you fucking get onto the car. Like that's that. So at that, so there were heightened. It's a really strange place to dump a body, because it's not going to be. Let me show you there are woods, right? There are woods nearby. And remember, he said the woods. It's really strange that he fucking dropped it there. But it's still, this is all just speculation. But I am going to speculate more that Huntley and Carr, there was some potential police-based paedophile ring going on, and Huntley and Carr were procuring little girls from the school. So nobody else has come forward. It's really strange. But remember, there were other. There was at least 8 attacks. Right, let me just show you. Like, there were woods. I don't understand why you'd like fucking UK has, like, we've got, I can't see men there, I don't think. No. Oh shit, sorry. That one. So this is Lakenheath. We've got, like, there's always it's a really strange place to go and dump bodies. It really is. Unless, like, the only thing I can think of is he he took the girls to his grandmother's house, which they reckon is 2 miles away, old property, did whatever he was doing with the girls, but why I don't understand why you'd move them and dump them. Like, nobody's ever kind of really clarified why you do that. But remember he said the one girl ran away. She ran away. Well, he said the dog ran away, right? The dog came back messy. So what happened? Did he take the 2 girls to his house to do disgusting stuff to them? Then one ran away and she ended up encountering somebody else as well, and then came back, and now he's compromised. And so then he's diverting attention. I don't know. Like, this is me just fucking guessing. Oops, I don't know what I'm doing now. Sorry. I'm trying to turn this one off. So like I said, that was me just like, there's lots of things that still don't really make sense. But it was all done so quickly. A lot of this stuff probably would never come out. So Ian Huntley's now been attacked. This is why somebody kind of sent it to me. Been attacked, and is fighting for his life again, right? It's just really fucking odd. He was involved somehow. So he's not innocent like the 2 thingies suggest, because of that 1 2-minute clip, right? So what I want you to kind of get from this is that we can use AI. We can use AI. You don't have to trust AI, but you can use AI to support you to understand things in a way that you perhaps wouldn't be able to. You can set the frame and the premise, and it can do stuff. But if you'll notice, just with that scan analysis, like, Grok came up with some really good stuff, but he didn't pick it all up. So don't rely on AI to be like the savior. You have to have a little bit of a knowledge yourself about certain things, but it can be a benchmark. It can be a jumping off point. But yeah, so there's my 10 cents to the person who kind of sent me the things and said, have a look at this. What do you think? Yeah, Ian Huntley was definitely involved. I think Carr was way more involved than just being an alibi. I reckon that was probably a 2-man team, and feeding. What was missing? What did those 2 officers get and have access to? What did they? Yeah, I think this is deeper. But I don't think we'll ever find out, and I think maybe that's why he's been. So we'll see. We'll see. So I'm off to have some food. Thank you very much for joining me. Have yourselves an amazing rest of your evening. I look forward to, I mean, yeah, a lot's going to happen in 7 days. It always does. Have yourselves an amazing week, and I shall see you next week. Bye for now.